Okay, it says that we're live, so welcome everyone. Happy Smithmas, where we give Ultra Hyperdulia to Joseph Smith. Oh, awesome. Michael's here.
Oh, there we are.
Cool.
How are you?
Happy Smithmas.
Yes.
Ready to engage in super duper hyperdulia to Joseph?
Hell yeah.
Don't worry, papists were not from to master him. That's all that matters. How are you keeping?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. Did you actually watch the debate?
No, I haven't watched the debate yet.
Neither have I. Though
Oh, okay.
we will probably torture one another by watching some parts of it today. By the way, for those
That's
who are
okay.
watching, there will be a debate review, but probably in the new year. Maybe Michael will be on. I'm hoping to try to get Jacob Ryder on. Maybe Blake Oster because he was there in person and he was triggered by Joe's. Well, Joe's a conscious fraud. I'm going to say it out
Yeah,
loud. I would even say that about Trent
agreed.
Horn, even though he's worse. We might be joined by Bradley Crum because he's inquired about it, but
Oh,
yeah.
nice. Let's get him on.
Cool. Arzanta is here. Hi, guys. Let's see. By the way, if you want to pop on as well, like if anyone wants to pop on, and I know you message me on Facebook, and depending on like the numbers, it would be fun because this is just like more like a chill stream where we actually celebrate the second most important person that ever walked this earth. Facts.
Wait, it's not Mary?
She'd be in the top five definitely.
Yes, she is.
We're asked, did you think Jacob did a good job in the debate? I have not actually watched the debate yet. In fact, we might be watching some parts of it, maybe the opening statements now. From what I've been told, they both had pretty good, strong statements, but they spoke past one another. Joe, in his typical fashion, dodged left, right, and center. Um, for instance, I gave up after literally 2 minutes of his review with Cameron from Capturing Christianity. But basically, he said, like, well, Jacob put me on the defensive of icon veneration, the Assumption of Mary, but I don't know why. I mean, he also is like, they're constitutive of your theology, including the papacy. My dude, you know that. You were a seminarian and or even an ordained deacon until you became a liar and then a liar. But be that as may, he also claimed like even if the Assumption and icon veneration were proven false, that would still leave Eastern Orthodoxy as a viable option. Now, I don't know if you know anything about Eastern Orthodox theology, but they are icon veneration's a dogma, and the Assumption
Yeah.
isn't a liturgy; it's a doctrine. You must believe it.
Yeah.
He seems to have this like really stupid idea, like unless of course Daddy Pope actually says it's ex cathedra, it's still not like high up in a doctrine, but there's loads of things like he as a Catholic believes, especially in moral theology and things like baptism in desire and baptism in blood. They're not defined de fide, but still mortal sin to know and they reject. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, my mission was Russia, so I got very familiar with icon veneration.
yeah,
But so so
yeah, that was the same mission as Alan Hansen. I know you served in different times, but Alan
yeah,
served there as well.
yeah, different times and different areas. He was in Samara, I think he said.
Oh, cool. And I know one of Blake Oster's sons also served there as well at the same time as Alan Hansen. So
Oh, that's cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think it was Jacob. But I could be
nice.
mistaken. It's either Jacob or Corey.
I only know
There's
Corey, so I'd have
it
to
was
ask.
one of them anyway. The one who's married to the
Yeah.
Russian girl served his mission in Russia,
Okay.
obviously enough. Yeah,
Okay.
but yeah. Well, I have like one or two random things before we're gonna get to the torture that's the debate. So probably like one of my favorite hymns is actually, and I'm not just saying this because of the season. It's actually "Praised in Man," and I will. I'm not a fan. I'm going to say like something that's going to be heretical here. I don't like a lot of the new hymns. There's a few like "Come Thou Font" which I like, but some of the other
Yeah.
hymns are kind of cheesy, and I
Yeah.
don't really like the press release that kind of downplays the importance of baptism. Pitchforks ready, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I will absolutely get triggered if Praise the Man is not in the next hymnal. And I would absolutely be ecstatic if Stain Illinois is restored to the hymnal.
That would be so great.
You know.
Oh man.
Oh, Arizanta, her husband served in Samara, Russia, '05 to '07.
Oh,
Uh,
did not know that.
I
That
think
was
it's roughly
after me. So
ask him if he knows an elder Alan Hansen, uh,
Yeah.
a dirty Israeli.
Yeah.
But that's cool. Okay. And she also says Jay Smitty, but she's hilarious. One of my friends left the church because of son praising the man.
Ah,
I hate to say this, but like
looking
if
good.
you leave the church because of that, it's like we're better off without you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but to leave the church over that, I mean, of all the things to
Yeah,
leave the
of all
church
the
over,
things, yeah, that's a low bar. Yes.
yeah. He must have got really triggered by that statue of Joseph Smith in India.
Right.
Oh,
Is it
Frosty,
is it
is this
gold
Lego
plated
Joseph
or
Smith?
something?
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
The
Sorry.
Indian statue, is that like gold plated or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was like a meme. It's like, take that, Boggs, you bastard.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, to answer Corellum Terry, no, Michael is not Lego Joseph Smith. Lego Joseph Smith is absolutely hilarious, and I like him as
He
like
is. I wish I was him.
yeah, no, that's Cornor.
Yeah, I wish I
By
was.
the way, I'm not doxing him. He's open about his ID. That's cool. So, but who's hilarious? You should look him up on TikTok as well. He's really funny. And I was told like the debate was fine up until the cross X. I will say this without actually having seen the debate, but like some friends like Blake Oster and a few others, including like one former Roman Catholic who's now LDS, attended the debate. I'm not the biggest fan of Jacob Hansen. Not on the personal level. It's like he's, the whole angels fear to tread. I'm not saying he's a fool, but he kind of often goes into areas where I think he's poorly equipped at times. I thought he did good against Trent Horn. It was like
Mhm.
on the very day, and this was like after like say several hour-long conversations with him and others like myself and Smoot with him. It's like it's either going to be like a brilliant debate and Jacob will do an excellent job, or it's going to be crap on his end because it's against Trent Horn. And say what you will about Trent, he knows the debate. Yeah, but he did well against Trent. Although he kind of let Trent get away with some murder about David Wimmer and a few other things. But I'm not sure
Sure.
about this debate. And also against Joe Heschmeyer, who, unlike Trent, I have no respect for.
Well,
But anyway,
some
one of the
people
things I
are
wanted to
treated.
share was like one of my favorite renditions of Praise in the Man, where they actually have the original lyrics. Oh, I forgot to share the sound. Sorry. I actually if you look up on YouTube "Son of Joseph," you'll come across this. But I downloaded the MP3, just be on the safe side. Share
Yeah, because the
sound.
tune is also different, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you let me know if you can actually hear this?
Praise to
Yep.
the
Okay, cool. Well, for those, because this is a shell stream, we. Oh, but Benjamin says Jacob Hansen got me into LDS apologetics and more scholarship, but his arguments aren't the best. Jacob is good when he has done a lot of study, but he only reached out to me about this debate 2 weeks ago. And in order to debate a Roman Catholic on the Great Apostasy, you need to know a lot of background information about ecclesiology, theological notes, and a host of other issues as well. But, according to Blake, like he did a good job overall. So, and Blake's not an easy person to please at times, But what we're going to do is like we're going to listen to this because it's an absolute based hymn, and it is, of course, the 228th anniversary of the birth of the prophet Joseph Smith. So evangelicals cope and seed. I'll be monitoring the chat anyway. So
praise to the man who communed with Jehovah, Jesus anointed that prophet and seer. Blessed to open the last dispensation, King shall extol him and nations revere. Hail to the prophet ascended to heaven. Traitors and tyrants now fight him in vain. Mingling
shed by assassins, stain Illinois.
Based.
Yep.
While the earth lauds his fame. Hail to the prophet ascended to heaven. Traitors and tyrants now fight him in vain. Mingling with gods, he can plan for his brethren. Death cannot conquer the hero again. Great is his glory and endless his priesthood. Ever and ever the keys he will hold. Faithful and true, he will enter his kingdom, crowned in the midst of the prophets of old. Hail to the prophet ascended to heaven. Traitors and tyrants now fight him in vain. Mingling with gods, he can plan for his brethren. Death cannot conquer the hero again. Sacrifice brings forth the blessings of heaven. Earth must atone for the blood of that man. Wake up the world for the conflict of justice. Millions shall know Brother Joseph again. Hail to the prophet ascended to heaven. Traitors and tyrants now fight him in vain. Mingling with gods, he can plan for his brethren. Death cannot conquer the hero
Yeah, I love
Yep.
that version.
Oh yeah. Gives you the feels, man. It gives you the feels.
Yeah, totally.
But
But,
just
I
so
mean,
everyone knows, it's not worship of the man. It's reverence for him. So we're good.
we actually need a meme, like say a Roman Catholic getting triggered by this. It's like Mormons worship
Yes.
Smith, it's like, and at the same time builds a statue to Mary. Is like,
Yeah.
Holy Mary, the propitiation, avert your son's wrath against me. So, quote something from Alphonsus Liguori or the Recolta prayers for indulgences.
Mm.
It's okay.
Yes.
We're just offering her hyperdulia.
That's right. That's right. That's you hear that a lot.
Although it kind of reminds me, it's like, you Baptists, you asked Pastor Jim to pray for you, so it's okay for me to, erect a statue of Blessed Virgin Mary,
There you go.
bow down before it, and ask for her to actually save me from Jesus's wrath.
There we go. Yeah, why not?
Although there's like a skit I would love for someone to do is like knocking on a friend's door, then getting down, is like, Oh, Michael, you're the only advocate I have with Jesus. Oh, please, oh, Michael, save me from the wrath of Satan and demons. Oh, Michael, I place my soul,
Right.
into your arms. It's like, and then for you or someone else to say like, what the actual f, dude?
Exactly. What are we saying here? It's funny because like my wife was literally listening to a song and I was praising Mary and I was hearing it and I don't know Latin very well, but I caught enough in it and I was like, babe, these lyrics are like saying Mary, Queen of Heaven and all this stuff, and like that's worship. This is no longer reverence, right? And she's like, yeah, but it's just so good. I'm like, yeah, it's catchy, but like, no. Just
But we're not
no.
offering her to sacrifice of the mass, so it's all good, my.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but I do
Um,
love that. I do love that hymn. It's one of my favorites. Probably my favorite is probably "Oh My Father."
oh,
I actually do like it, but there's a few others.
yeah.
But yeah, "Praising the Man" is it's a banger. Just because it
Yes.
also pisses a lot of people off. It's like
Yeah. Well,
in the
you get
church,
that extra.
especially the progressives.
Yeah. You get that extra oomph with it.
Yeah,
I
totally.
like it.
There will be holy hell to pay if it's removed from the hymnal. I will say
Oh, I
that.
know. I didn't even know that was going to be a consideration, but now you got me wondering, man. Like,
I hope not.
I
But
hope not.
with how Sheemsy a lot of the recent hymns, not all, but a lot of Sheemsy
Yeah.
the most recent hymns are, and they're very ishy, squishy, ecumenical. I
Yeah.
am a little worried.
Yeah. And then it's like the change with say like what is that? I like to look for rainbows song, whatever it's called. Oh, what is this? Oh, nice, Saint Joseph.
Or
Now, wait,
Nobis.
was that Alejandro's thing first, or
Yeah. I don't
yeah,
know. I just came across like on the church store, so I'm not sure. Like Alejandro, by the way, shout out to Alejandro, our favorite
yeah,
lobster.
yeah,
If he's the one who came up with it, or he just like shared it. But yeah.
yeah? Okay, yeah, I just remember it from him. But
But
like,
by the way,
yeah,
Michael is not Lego Joseph Smith. Lego
I'm
Joseph Smith,
not.
and I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
doxing
people.
him. He's Cole Norda.
Oh, no, it's Cole, guys. Cole,
Yeah.
follow him. He's hilarious. I
Yeah.
wish I was as funny as him. If you want funny LDS, like quasi apologetics, follow Salty Saints for Hayden and Cole Norda for Lego Joseph Smith.
Yeah.
Okay. That's where you go.
No, I did, however, get the triggered or the Lycan Joseph Smith one from actually Cole, who actually shared it on my wall.
Oh, there
So
we
that's
go.
why I used it.
Yeah. Okay. That's why yeah, that is why people are asking. I forgot that was your thumbnail.
Yeah, but I just use it because, like, first of all, Lego Joseph Smith, the image is like
It's
so
awesome.
randomly video game,
Yeah.
but at the
Yeah.
same time, like, yeah, it's really good. But no, although if Lego Joseph Smith himself wants to come on just to like
Oh,
squash the
we
rumors,
won't.
Michael ism. Although I've never seen them in the same room. I'm just saying.
It's true. I think Cole probably has 30 pounds of muscle on me, though. The guy's yoked.
Yeah, I mean, I initially thought like the guy would be like a bit scrawny or thin, but no, the guy is actually well built and not fat built, like a strong, muscular build. So
Yeah.
fair days. But yeah, also like before we're gonna go and torture ourselves by watching the opening statements of the debate, which I have not watched yet, so stop asking me people if I've seen it. Although Blake Oster was in the front row getting triggered by Joe Heschmeyer.
Oh,
Um,
that's awesome.
I did
I got
prepare
to
some.
say this
Oh,
because
go ahead.
Tariq was, you know Tariq, right?
Yeah,
If
of
people
course.
don't know Tariq, I haven't opened his comment yet. He was asking me if I watched the debate yet this morning, and I was like, no, I haven't. Blah blah. I just asked him his thoughts. He said, "This is what Tariq said," and of course, he's coming from the Catholic perspective now.
Yeah.
It felt like both were there to debate two different things. The debate would have been better, I think, if it had been all written out and exchanged, and only the Q&A was extemporaneous. So I don't know why he thinks that, but obviously he watched it. So
Yeah. No, he's not a fan of a lot of like pop level Catholic apologetics. He's shared
right.
some of these other thoughts about some aspects of Catholicism, which I'm not going to share publicly, but
Bad.
yeah. Yeah, and I agree with you, Candy. It will be painful to watch. But I'm sure people want me to do a debate review. So, by the way, this is not going to be the debate review. This is just a chill stream, and we might just go through, like, say, some of the opening statements. But there will be a debate review. I think Bradley Crum wants to come on. He's the former Baptist, one of the former Baptists I baptized over a year
Yeah.
ago. So that should be good. I know he's actually Facebook friends with Joe, so that'll be interesting. Let's see. I know Jacob Ryder has an interest in it, and as I said, I might try to get Blake Oster or someone else who was there in person to come on. So
That would be cool.
I'll see if I can actually get any of my Roman Catholic friends. And yes, I do have many Roman Catholic friends
Yes.
who actually watch the debate to actually come on and give their view of it.
We just mentioned one of them, so.
Yeah, but he's Eastern Rite Catholic, you know.
Oh,
It's like, oh,
well,
by the way,
actually,
how do you know if someone's Eastern Rite Catholic?
oh, how?
Don't worry, they'll tell you.
Oh, okay.
It's
I
like,
actually had to ask Tariq because he was posting some stuff that made me think he was more Orthodox, and he said no, just Eastern Rite. You know. So.
Yeah, no, Eastern Uniates or Eastern Rite, like externally look very like Eastern Orthodox.
Yeah.
But you know, they do submit to the Bishop of Rome, so that's all that matters. You know.
I guess so.
You can venerate Photius and other condemned heretics like Gregory of Palamas, who called the Filioque Arian and Satanic, but you know, as long as you bow down to
As long as,
you know,
well, yeah.
Povros, you know, Leo the 14th, you know, it's all good.
Yeah. Constantinople will rise.
Please review it so I can know my pain is shared. I
Ah,
haven't even reviewed it yet, and believe me, I'm in agony even just thinking about it.
thinking about it.
Yeah.
Oh well.
And by the way, like if Jacob actually watches this is not a slight against you, but it's probably more.
It's more that like it's hard to have a good debate with a bad debater. Like I for example, I know that you and others have challenged like Jeff Durbin and stuff, but it would be painful to watch in a way because you have to deal with what they're trying to do and say.
Which is why
So-
I'd rather debate someone like James White, who actually knows how
Yes.
to behave himself as much as I
Yeah.
disagree with James.
Exactly, yeah. That and James is like far more honest. I'm surprised at some of the things the guy has said.
Oh no. To be
because of
fair, like
stuff.
in debates, he tends to like behave himself. He sometimes
Yeah.
engages in sheep shot tactics, but he's nowhere as bad as a Jerry Maddox,
Yeah.
if you're familiar with him. But anyway, just to continue the duty of being given to Joseph Smith, not Latria. I used to teach gospel doctrine in my previous ward when I was in Utah. Best calling ever. Oh, and Candy notes, at least James is consistent. I mean, in comparison to Jeff Durbin. Jeff Durbin just basically copies and pastes James White. He has no original thought at all. So,
Right.
By the way, I hope everyone loves the meme. It's from my old workplace, Mormonor. This is your birthday and your Christmas present.
Oh, did you see what Mormoner put out today?
Oh, is that the black and white one?
Yes, the black and white one. It looked like it was from Godwin, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one.
But anyway, I did prepare like a lesson a while ago when we were doing Book of Mormon on Second Nephi 3 as well as 4 and 5. We won't go through like 4 and 5, but like of course, like Second Nephi 3 is the prophecy of the seer, and like I started off the slides with this, and there's a reason why I'm starting off with math, you know, because as many used to know, I used to be an accountant, and I'm actually good at normal math, but once they introduced X and Y and differentiation, it's like screw this, I'm not going to go into a career in mathematics or maths, you know. But one thing I always remember still is like there's some shapes that have one focal point or one turning point, like a circle, but there's some like an oblong here that has two foci or two turning points. And that's kind of a good analogy for like say the restoration. You know, it all hinges on, of course, like say Jesus and the resurrection and so forth. You know, that's central, but there's another focal point of those two foci, and that's Joseph Smith and the restoration and other aspects as well. So that's kind of a good analogy as in perfect at ease, you know, with Latter-day Saint truth claims. You know, and I originally came across this in John Prentice's underrated book from 2000, Organize My Kingdom, which everyone should try and track down a copy of. It's also on a Russian website if you can't find it in print. But it's a bit dated because of the Joseph Smith papers, but it's a very good overview, like say the development and doctrine of priesthood in Latter-day Saint history. It's called Organize My Kingdom from 2000, Cornerstone. But this actually appears in the John Taylor papers in the Church History Library. And if you actually look at the date, June 27th, 1882. What is that?
Wait, why is June 20th the day of the Book of Mormon, right?
Oh no, June 27th.
Well, that's
What happened to Joseph and Hiram on that day?
Oh, that's their martyrdom. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and also and what happened to John Taylor himself on that day?
Right, he was shot.
Oh yeah, he was badly wrong. So in this
yeah,
revelation, which was on the 38th anniversary of the prophet's martyrdom,
yeah.
the Lord speaking through John Taylor said this. And by the way, this is not some weird cookie fundamentalist document. This is actually in the CHL, so it's okay.
Mhm.
Behold, I raised up my servant Joseph Smith to introduce my gospel and to build up my church and establish my kingdom on the earth. And I gave unto him wisdom and knowledge and revelation and intelligence pertaining to the past, the present, and the future, even to that extent which was not known among men. And I endowed him, Joseph Smith, with power from on high, and conferred upon him the priest of Aaron, and also the priest of Melchizedek, which is after the order of the Son of God, even the holiest of all, and after the power of an endless life, and administered forever in this world and the world to come. He was called and ordained to this office before the world was. He was called by me and empowered by me and sustained by me to introduce and establish my church and kingdom upon the earth, and to be a prophet, seer, and revelator to my church and kingdom, and be a king and ruler over Israel. So, I, this is like where John Taylor, late in life, is looking back, and this is the 38th anniversary of not just like an event that like ravaged him, like he was seriously injured, and I'm sure like he had a lot of traumatic memories of that even since then, but also like the murder, the martyrdom of two very close friends and associates of him, Joseph and Hiram. And we kind of get through the Lord in this non-canonized revelation, this really high view of Joseph Smith. And I'll say this, like, it kind of irks me, like, that there is amongst many members of the church this wanting to like downplay Joseph Smith and his role in our theology and history, and it's like you can't. Joseph Smith is central to Latter-day Saint truth claims. He's not some randomer like I am or you or Michael in the overall scheme of things. Like it or not,
Mhm.
it all hinges on him. If he wasn't
Yeah,
what he was, if he didn't see God in Jesus in 1820, if he didn't through miraculous means translate the Book of Mormon, and so on and so forth, our faith is in vain. Similarly, like if the resurrection were to be disproven, our faith is in vain. It's that
yeah,
central.
yeah.
You know,
It's true.
and there's like prophecies of the Latter-day seer, which Joseph fulfilled. And I will note, like when it comes to say the term seer, and this is from the entry in the theological edition of the Old Testament, we actually do have this like nuance of what a seer is. Unlike other verbs referring to visual perception, ra'ah denotes the experience as seen as a totality, in which sensation and perception merge. The experience of the visual nature of reality has its content, the meaning, character, and nature of the image is perceived. This experience is the polar opposite of sensation, i.e., the experience of the concrete reality, concrete nature of reality, an experience that conveys the nature and intensity of such sensory data as color, form, and spatial location. So basically, the TLDR is like when a seer receives like a revelation or a vision, it's not like say how you would look upon like say the Mona Lisa or some art work of art, like you have this kind of emotional experience and so forth. It's more like no, you receive this objective interaction with the future,
Mhm.
based on what will happen if contingencies meet. There's no or very little, if any, emotional reaction or like sensory reaction. It's more objective scene. So I kind of thought that nuance was pretty interesting, and there's a lot more that could be said here. But yeah, I'll share some of those comments, especially the John Taylor revelation,
Mhm.
because like
No,
he
I
saw.
like that second one a lot because I think that does. If people, I think, get really confused about that, and it goes back to the first one you shared. They're actually pretty related because you got a foreordination being taught, but we also know that, like, and you said it, there will be contingencies in a way. Like the Lord's not letting His plan be thwarted. May a man reach out his arm and try to stop the Mississippi River or whatever that is. But like you have also that when they take up that mantle and fulfill that calling and they're doing it, the Lord is truly guiding in the sense of objective reality, objective truth. And that's why we are able to have faith in the structure, the organization, the administration of the church, right? Like it's kind of useless to think that you're on par with the prophet, seer, and revelator of the Lord. We have to learn how to submit. We have to learn how to be, um, good citizens in the kingdom, and then those gifts might be distilled downward upon us, right? Because in the grand scheme of things, like you said, we're you and I and anyone generally listening to this probably are just like the general people in the church, And we're reliant upon those gifts flowing down through the channels of revelation, even though we can have personal revelation. It's not necessarily the same as the seership that is operative with a prophet. I like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's see if there's any comments.
I think people were just wanting to know if I was looking. They go Joseph Smith.
Well, we're all disappointed.
Yeah.
But as I said, I have never seen you or the real Lego Joseph Smith in the same room.
True.
So who knows?
True. I could be using
Or you could
AI.
do like what some extreme polygamy deniers claim is like you have the same premortal spirit, you're just sharing different bodies or something.
Jeez.
There was actually one, Richard Pratt, he actually died a few years ago. He's the one who joined that group in Brazil that claimed like they had golden blades. He actually claimed like Leah and Rebecca in the Old Testament actually had the same premortal spirit, but it was split into like 2 different bodies. So it wasn't actually an example of Old Testament polygamy.
Wow.
Just imagine like if an LDS actually, you know, Joseph was actually a monogamist. Just all those like 33 women, they share the same premortal
Yeah,
spirit.
they share the same spirit. Oh my gosh, it's broken. It's like Voldemort and Harry Potter. Like, no. That's not how it works.
And Josiah Flynn claiming he's Joseph Smith. No, I'm Spartacus. I mean, Lego Joseph Smith.
Yeah. We'll just do
Okay.
that.
Anything you want to discuss before we actually torture ourselves for a bit going through the debate?
And let's see. I don't think so. I think I'm good. I think we can just get to it. Just rip the Band-Aid off.
Have you ever seen that episode of 30 Rock where they have to vote and the guy doesn't want to and he's really struggling with it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically me whenever I come up thinking like doing this debate. So breathe in, breathe out.
Loading.
Well, I did download the MP4, so there won't be any copyright strike, hopefully, against me. But let's see. Share screen 2, share sound. Oh, by the way, I'm going to pause after 2 seconds, and I want you to actually guess who's in the front, more or less in the front row or near the front row. Ready?
Okay.
Okay, can you see him?
Who's in the front row or near the front row?
Well, second row.
Oh, second row?
Yeah.
Is it on the left side?
Yes. And Frank, that's the clue.
Oh my gosh, is that really him?
Yeah, the guy in the blue shirt, that's him.
Yeah. Well, and his head's turned, but like,
you know, that's Aaron.
Yeah. His profile pic looks a lot different. The only time I've seen Aaron, I think, is the picture from his Kwaku debate, because I haven't watched that debate. But when he talked to Travis on the street, that was the only other time I've seen him.
Travis mopped the floor.
Yeah, it was bad.
To be fair, Aaron's not smart, so.
No.
Okay, well, is there a way I can actually change this to, I might do 1.5 speed, so. If it's too much, let me know. But.
Hello.
Let's see, Rogue Crusader. I'm not sure if you're saying like you're too late, but if you want to pop on, if I know who you're on Facebook, drop me a message and I could let you on so we can actually share the torture together. Yeah. What we're gonna do is we might just go to like the opening, at least Jacob's opening statement. And sure. If I have not banged my head against a wall too many times, Joe's opening statement, and I will be concussed by the end of that. I can guarantee it. So
yeah.
All right, we are about to begin the debate tonight. Thank you all for coming, and a special thanks to St. John the Baptist Parish for their hospitality, Father Tilly for allowing us to do this event here. This debate tonight is on the Great Apostasy. If you don't know that, you're at the wrong place, okay? Our LDS debater is none other than Jacob Hansen. Let's give him a round of applause. This is going to tell us what the split is in the room. Our Catholic debater is none other than Joe Heschmeyer. Oh, okay. So some very quick bios if you don't know who these people are.
Oh, by the way, I will note this. A few months ago, Joe actually had a debate with James White on the Mass. He actually explicitly refused to debate icon veneration. He will not debate the more difficult topics for a Roman Catholic. Keep that in mind. Someone also hinted at the idea like him debating me on the Immaculate Conception, and he shot that down. So,
Of course.
It's almost Christmas and we're not on migraine. It's too late.
Jacob Hansen is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. My hand is shaking. I'm a little bit nervous. Sorry, guys.
Oh, and by the way, if you're familiar with how Cameron became a Roman Catholic, it's the dumbest thing ever. I mean, he actually appeared on Pints with Aquinas when he decided to become a Catholic. And guess what he did not know about? He did not know about the rosary.
What?
Yeah, he did not even know about the rosary. He was saying like how he loved like the Catholic spiritual life and the prayer life. It's like,
Yeah.
Okay, and when asked like, have you ever prayed the rosary? He's like, no.
That's weird.
I mean, the rosary is central to Roman Catholic piety. I mean, if you look at, like, say, Lourdes in 1858 and Fatima in 1917 as two examples, Mary, quote unquote, plugged the rosary quite a bit. And, the rosary is seen as, like, very important, in daily devotions for, like, even normie Catholics.
Right.
The very fact that
I
you didn't
thought
know
to
about that-
get your confirmation, didn't you have to pray the rosary?
That's news to me, but
Oh, okay. Anyway, I yeah.
If I can even read this. He hosts the YouTube channel Thoughtful Faith, where he discusses philosophy, theology, and social issues. Jacob owns multiple businesses and is happily married to his college sweetheart, Erica, and together they have 4 children. Beautiful. Joe Heschmeyer is a staff apologist, speaker, author, and blogger with Catholic Answers.
also a Roman Catholic deacon.
Oh,
Yeah, he was in Charles Borromeo Seminary up until 2012, and he was actually a
Okay.
deacon. Now, my own view is like he kind of realized like he cannot be a grifter as a priest, so he dropped
Right.
out, become a lawyer, and then kind of realized like he didn't like that, but he could earn a great grift as a Catholic apologist.
Where he helps explain and defend the teachings of the Catholic Church. He hosts the Shameless Popery YouTube channel and has written several books on Catholic doctrine and history. Prior to his current work, he was a litigation attorney and a seminarian, and he holds degrees in history, philosophy, and theology, living with his wife and children near Kansas City. Is that all correct?
Oh, now in Kansas City, but yeah.
I could not tell he actually had a degree in philosophy or theology.
yeah.
Seriously, I could not. That's actually news to me, and
Yeah.
that even makes it worse.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so mostly correct, yes. Okay, so the structure of tonight's debate, if you intend on staying throughout the whole thing, we have 18-minute opening statements from each debater. Jacob is going to be going first. We'll have a round of 10-minute rebuttals from each debater, followed by 15 minutes of cross-examination each, starting with Jacob. Then we're going to do some Q&A with you guys, and that will last around 30 minutes, and then we're going to do 5-minute closing statements on each side. Afterward, we're going to have some rooms in the back where you can meet the debaters. It's going to be a great time. I'm really excited about this. I do need to mention one thing. Okay, this is a very spicy topic. It can get the audience we had a little event last night. We had some rowdiness here and there. So if you're going to get rowdy,
Oh yeah, for those of you who don't know, there was more like a interfaith dialogue between Joe, Roman Catholic, Jacob, LDS, and Aaron, Reformed Protestant. So I'm not sure the video to that dropped, and I'm not sure if I want to watch something with Aaron because
Yeah.
as despicable
I'm
as
not
I
sure
think
there will be
Joe
a video.
is,
Yeah, that seemed to be like an exclusive, to be their thing,
yeah.
I thought.
I think Smoot was there. No, Smoot was there for the interfaith one and actually talked to Joe and gave him some books, including Stephen Webb's books. But I know for a fact he's not going to read them. So
the ushers actually might escort you out. So let's try to keep it, calm and collected. Keep your applause to the very end. So it's very natural to want to applause after each speaker gets up here and says their speech. Let's hold it all, if we can, to the very end. With that, we're going to open with some statements from both of our debaters.
Yeah, just ecumenical statements. First of all, I want to say, I don't know why you're nervous. I'm debating Joe Heschmeyer. Did you hear all the things in his resume? Joe actually has been great. I've gotten to know him over the last few days personally. I have a lot of respect for Joe Heschmeyer.
to be fair, Jacob also has respect for John Dehlin, so the bar is very, very low. I hate to say this, but yeah.
And for the Catholic Church. I actually went to Catholic schools growing up, and it was a wonderful experience. So this debate tonight, obviously we're going to go at it with arguments and things, but please know that it doesn't come from a place of anger or hatred or something like that. So I hope that we can keep that in mind.
Yeah, I would echo that. Last night we had the dialogue thing that we just heard about, and there was something that the Protestant pastor there said that I thought was really beautiful, which is that Mormons are an easy people to love. And I think anyone who's lived in Utah, whether you're LDS or not, knows this to be true.
And yet that doesn't stop Joe lying through his teeth, like claiming the Nauvoo Legion was used by Joe Smith to actually
Right.
engage in forced conversions.
Right.
F you,
Yeah.
you lying POS. I'm sorry, but
It's-
Joe, you're a liar.
No,
We
his
can
whole,
see-
his
we
whole
can-
thing,
we can
like
see- we can
Mormon
see the friggin'
Muslims.
charade.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
And the hospitality I've received here from honestly from both Catholics and LDS has been staggering. This is my third time in Utah, and I have never left without some unexpected gift that I didn't come in with. It's been a painting. I've gotten. Look at me and tell me why I'm giving me chocolate, but they're giving me chocolate and rosaries, obviously the Catholic ones. So you all are wonderful. So Utah, thank you very much. And I think the LDS culture of hospitality really helps make that possible. And so know this is coming from a place of, I think, mutual appreciation, even in the midst of some very important disagreements as well.
So let's get an applause out now. Sure. Let's just
If I may, I'd like to thank a few people real quick before we start. A lot of the behind-the-scenes people. Well, Jacob, first of all the organization. Like, he reached out, he followed up when I forgot to get back with him. I don't want to tell you how many times that happened. And like organizing everything. So the fact that this actually went from idea to completion, Jacob carried that baby to term. I mean, it was a labor of love, but it was a labor. Monica Bambo, she was fantastic in just reading us. I didn't expect to be treated like dignitaries when we arrived in SLC. The audio guys did the appreciated work of Layton actually recorded and listened to later. Obviously, Cameron for moderating, Jacob for debating, and also for your wife and kids for giving up of their time. I'd like to also thank my wife, Anna, who is single-handedly taking care of our kids, and hopefully it's going well. It either is or she is just letting me think it is so that I won't have peace of mind. Anyway, and then, thank you folks in St. John Baptist, and everyone else who I may have forgotten. Isaac has everybody who looked over stuff ahead of time. So thank you to all of you people, and hopefully it's a wonderful evening.
Awesome. You ready to? Yeah. Thank you, Erica from the parish. She's been working with us. He said I organized everything. It was Erica when it comes to this venue and stuff. She did an amazing job. So thank you so much for that. Obviously, Joe, Erica. If you see this with the kids, I hope you're doing all right. Same thing. Thank you to all involved.
All right, let's go ahead and begin with our opening statement from Jacob.
Perfect. And time starts when
you begin speaking.
Okay, cool. So I get myself set up.
Here it goes.
All right.
Okay, depending on this, we will try to go through like both opening statements, but for those who are listening, this is not the debate review. I'm going to make comments off the top of my head. I do know Joe proof texts Irenaeus, so that'll be interesting. But yeah, so keep that in mind. There will be like a proper debate review in the new year, and I will probably either react live to the rest of this, or we'll see. So
I got to mention, there was a comment here from Candy. She says, "Why are we the most hated out of all religions in the Pew survey then?" Goes back to what Joe had said, which apparently was a regurgitation of what I assume Aaron had said. And you kind of hit it on the head already, Robert. Like Joe and Aaron and others, they could say that stuff, but then they teach something very different when they're not facing us. So that would be why, Candy. That would be.
oh, and by the way, there's a comment like catching up, lol. Don't worry, they'll tell you about the Eastern Rite Catholics. And then there's the other comment. I'm a vegan Eastern Rite Catholic that does CrossFit. Everyone.
Oh
loves
no.
me."
That's terrible.
Adds a new dimension to the term fasting, I suppose.
Now, with deep respect for the Catholic Church in mind, we have gathered together today to engage over one of our major differences. And Joe is here to claim that the Pope has always sat in the chair of Peter, and therefore all believers in Christ, including Protestants and Orthodox.
Oh, by the way, Joe bitches about this, that he thinks like Jacob is trying to make this into a papacy debate. According to Roman Catholic dogma, Vatican I, Pastor Terrace 1870, and other documents even preceding that and coming after that as well, the papacy as defined in Vatican I, not simply the papacy simpliciter, papacy as dogmatically defined in Vatican I, is constitutive of the true church. Don't believe me, read Satis Cognitum from either 1893 or 1896 by Leo XIII, where he discussed the Anglicans and other issues as well, where he provided a structure to that in history. It's largely a bogus history. Look at papalism from 1912 by Denny. But be it as it may, it is constitutive, so it is an aspect of Catholic theology. It's not like, say, he's talking about, like, say, people claim like priestly vestments are intrinsic to Christianity, but we can see that they emerged in the 4th century or whatever, or something accidental. No, we're talking about something substantial. So if there was no papacy, ergo, Joe will either have to claim the early Christians were not proto-Catholics, or there was an apostasy. Either way, he's effed.
Yeah, it's not the same. Yeah.
I think the best thing to come out of the Roman Catholic Church is the Divine Mercy image. As someone who actually loves Poland, I have to say I don't think so. And that is a Polish thing, and I do love the people and the food.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you've ever been, but it's a beautiful country. Just pity about the language.
Oh yeah, and
Must
pierogi.
submit to the infallible dictates of the Pope, because he is the ultimate earthly authority for all believers in Christ. And knowingly rejecting his infallible decrees are, in Catholic dogma, a mortal sin that leads to an eternity in the fires of hell.
And also, even when he's not speaking ex cathedra, to actually publicly go against his ordinary universal magisterium as well. You can disagree, but you keep it internally.
So to my Protestant friends, if Joe wins tonight and proves that the Catholic claims are true, I expect to be seeing you alongside me praying the rosary at Mass this Sunday. But is the Roman Church the one true church? Well, first we must discuss what we mean by church. The word church can be used to refer to the body of believers, or it can be used to describe the institution that governs those believers. Remember, tonight's debate is not if the church as a body of believers ever ceased to exist. The church, in the sense of a body of believers, has certainly had a continual existence since the time of Jesus Christ. And no doubt the Lord's Spirit worked amongst those believers. Let me be clear. Latter-day Saints do not teach that the church as a body of sincere believers was ever lost from the earth. But what about the institutional church? Is there an institutional church on earth today that has continually held the ultimate governing authority and jurisdiction over all the world in the same way that Peter and the other apostles did? Because if no one on earth holds that same authority, then something was lost.
What do you think about his tactics so far in this debate? Because I'm not too sure about it.
I think he's trying to head off what could be used as like, because this is just personal speculation, of course. I don't know what's in his head, but people try to use all the creeds and their professors are corrupt against us, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, why would you say that they're true believers and blah, blah, blah. And even in that statement, okay, well, the true and sincere believers weren't the ones that came up with the creeds, nor were they the professors of the religion that corrupted it. They were the true believers. But I think maybe what he's trying to do is head off any discussion of that to put it in its proper place. My thought.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, they're just going to beg at the question, like, say, so was proto-Catholicism there early? And I know, like, one of the questions during the cross-ex or the audience Q&A is, like, when did Jacob think the Catholic Church came into existence? And to shock people, it said 1965 with the Vatican II Council coming to an end. And in a way, because there is a rupture between pre and post Vatican II Catholicism, like its ecclesiology and, the salvation of heretics like Photius and true martyrs, existing outside the realm of the true church, contra the Council of Florence. There are issues, especially with the normie mass of Luther that they have these days as well. But it's more like, say, it's something that you can't say, like, the Catholic Church came into existence in so-and-so year,
Right.
It's like the fallacy of the beard. It's there, but it's still developing. And, for instance, the Assumption Mary was not defined as a defeated dogma until 1950. Right. And there's a host of other things as well. Like, it's only recently that they actually quashed the idea like Mary is co-redemptrix, which even in the footnotes they acknowledge JP II used the Mary like maybe half a dozen or a dozen times.
Yeah.
You see, Protestants and Catholics both get something right. Catholics are right to point out that Peter held a special universal jurisdiction and authority. And the Protestants are right to point out that that central authority did not exist after the apostolic era. So in other words, something was lost. So what is the great apostasy? I want you all to write this down. Today, when I talk about the great apostasy, I mean the demonstrable doctrinal and institutional corruption that inevitably resulted from a loss of the authority to receive ongoing, binding public revelation for the entire body of believers. Look, we both agree that
that's one way to define it, but I think, again, you have to nuance things, especially when it comes to a Roman Catholic, because like in Roman Catholic theology, once you're ordained to the priesthood, that produces an indelible mark upon the soul, so you'd never not be a priest. I mean, even like saying the 1917, and it's probably the same for the 1983 Code of Canon Law. In extreme circumstances, you could go to like an apostate Roman Catholic priest who's basically now a Satanist to get like extreme unction or the sacraments in, because they'll always be able to like confect sacraments if they have the sacramental intention, even if they've gone 180 degrees.
Yeah, so there's a horror movie that uses that principle called La Llorona. If people haven't seen it, there's a priest who is no longer supposedly in communion that they go to, and he's the one that's able to do the thing to expel La Llorona, which is a Mexican demon fable. thing. And so, yeah. Anyway, I just thought I'd drop that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Christ established one true visible institutional church, and that institutional church has either had a continual existence or there was an institutional apostasy. Those are the only two options. So here's what a Roman Catholic like Joe must do to win tonight's debate. He must prove that the Catholic claims about the continual existence of the fullness of the institutional church are true. He must prove,
As defined by Vatican I and other binding documents. And also let's note, like, say, the Council of Trent in Session 4 said, like, the teachings of the apostles, the apostle of the faith has stopped being added to, and the church has faithfully passed on the dogmas and doctrines from generation to generation. So you can't exactly do, like, say, a Gnostic, you have the secret knowledge. It's been publicly passed down from generation to generation.
that the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, has always had universal jurisdiction over all believers. And he must show that the Pope...
And I was just said
Quick
immediate.
question.
Just one thing, immediate
Yeah.
universal jurisdiction. So it's not something like, say, he could exercise if some things are met, universal jurisdiction. No, immediate by his fiat. But yeah, go ahead.
Right. My question was, how do sedevacantists remain Catholic in that case?
Oh, in what respect?
Like if the Pope or the Holy See, whatever we're going to call it, by fiat dictates universally, and then they say, well, the seat is empty.
Oh, they would argue basically, like, say, either at the moment they issue, like, say, something false on the public level, or beforehand, they lost their office. So, if you're familiar with, say, Bishop Donald Sanborn, he follows the thesis of Gerard de Laurier that argues that all the popes, like John the 23rd, Paul the 6th, JP II onwards, they've had a valid election to the papacy, but because they want to bind public heresy on the church, i.e. Vatican II, they're not true popes until that impediment and other impediments are overcome. So that's one way. The other is like the view of like totalists like the late Anthony Cicada, who wrote an excellent book, Work of Human Hands, critiquing the new mass. They would argue like public heresy before receiving an office makes that null and void. So they never actually were popes to begin with. There's various ways around that.
Popes have been infallibly guided by God in such a way that no saving doctrines have been lost or added to or corrupted in any way. Good luck.
Council of Trent, Session 4, Jacob's correct. And also Vatican I, Pastor Eternus, that stated that the Holy Spirit was not given to the successors of Peter, i.e. the popes, that by his revelation that by his guidance they might receive new revelation, but by his guidance they might hold and sacredly teach faithfully what has been passed down from generation to generation. I'm working from memory, but that's more or less the substantial gist of it.
On the other hand, all I have to do is show it that the history clearly demonstrates. And it demonstrates two things. First, that nobody, including the bishops...
And I will note, like, say, when it comes to, say, the whole great apostasy thing, and having engaged with both Catholic and especially Calvinists on this issue, I never go to the Bible, because you engage in proof texting until the cows come home. And I think, like, say, from what Blake Oster has told me, Joe has engaged in a lot of fanciful eisegesis in the Bible. I just go to history. It's like, okay, if that's the case, we should look at history and we should find in the extant documents, inscriptions, creeds, canons, councils, local and ecumenical, these beliefs. And we do not. So.
in Rome thought that the local bishops in Rome had ultimate infallible authority over the church in the times before Constantine. And second, that the popes have clearly over the centuries corrupted and added to the teachings and practices of the first Christians without even claiming revelation.
I hate to use James White approvingly, but one thing I do like about James White is during the debate, I think it was against Jerry Maddox, he quoted Manning, who was like a friend of Newman and a fellow Anglican convert to Catholicism. And he basically said, like, say, critics of the infallibility of the Pope have actually just used like only a handful of purported instances of papal error, like Honorius and Virgilius, it's like, and White said, like, no, we can actually go to like dozens, like, the Mass, the Assumption of Mary, the Immaculate Conception, but because you Catholics actually just accept that anyway, so yes, like we have loads of examples of paper error, they're basically called all your dogmas.
So let's start with the first point. Here's a question. Did Peter have the authority to receive new, binding, ongoing revelation for the entire world?
By the way, someone said, like, I'm actually really quiet. Are you hearing me, or is the sound fine?
I'm hearing you. Yeah.
Okay.
But, yeah.
I'm not sure if that's just you, Simon. It's like a new microphone, but I'll try to keep as close to it as possible. So
Obviously, yes. Does the Pope today even claim to have that same kind of authority? Here's what the Catechism of the Catholic Church says. Quote, "This magisterium only teaches what has been handed to it. No new public revelation is to be expected." You see, Peter had the authority to receive new binding public revelation for the world, and the Pope doesn't even claim to have that kind of authority. In other words, something was lost. And here's what's wild. Joe agrees. In a recent convo with Gavin Ortlund, here's what Joe said. He said, quote, "Bishops did not have the same role as the apostles. When we say Peter was the Bishop of Rome, we don't mean he was the Bishop of Rome in the same way all subsequent bishops were. Things."
By the way, a bit off topic, but like there's some stupid arguments against the papacy, and to throw the Catholics a bone, I'll use one. It's like where in 1 Peter 5, he refers to himself as a fellow presbyter or elder. And some say, well, of course he couldn't be the Bishop of Rome if he claims to be a fellow elder. It's like one example of humility, and two, he was also an apostle. So is he downplaying he's been an apostle? It's not the best way to argue against Peter being a pope or a Bishop of Rome. So, you know.
were more murky because of the presence of the apostles who had this once in the history of the church authority. My jaw dropped when I heard Joe say that. He literally said that Peter had a type of authority that the bishops of Rome did not have. So what does this mean? It means something was lost. And that's no small matter. The nature and character of the church established by Christ in the New Testament was to be led by a living central authority guided by revelation. Having a prophet leading the people of God through revelation is the biblical ecclesiastical pattern found in both the Old and the New Testaments. Amos 3:7 says, "Surely the Lord God will do nothing, but he revealeth his secret unto his servants, the prophets." It is simply a matter of historical fact that there was no clear centralized leader with universal jurisdiction in the early Christian movement after the apostles.
By the way, if you look, and before the Catholics come in, it's like, I know it's not dogmatic. Chieti and the other documents where there's the Eastern Orthodox theologians and the Pope's handpicked theologians, basically in the Chieti document and other documents as well, they basically said in the first millennium, there's no example of anything but collegiality in the East, and there's no example of a Pope acting autonomously, So basically, you end up, like, say, with Ybarra and other Catholic apologists arguing for papal minimalism. It's like, well, the Bishop of Rome actually had this, but he never actually exercised it.
Well, I have one question then about that. Ex cathedra is where the Pope does speak authoritatively. Is it like himself only, or does there have to be some kind of council that substantiates?
No.
Okay.
If you read the paragraph in Pastor Returns that defines papal infallibility, there's basically a line like, again, I don't have Denzinger in front of me, but it basically said like, the Roman pontiff, when he speaks ex cathedra, that is when acting as ultimate shepherd of the church and so forth, then they speaks on either faith or morals, and there's like criteria, like it must be on faith and morals. It must be as Pope, not as a private theologian. It must be addressed to the entire church. And also there's a line saying like, and such decrees are in of themselves irreformable and not subject to correction. He doesn't actually have to like confer. Morally, he's expected to study and confer with his fellow bishops, but he doesn't have to. It's not contingent upon, like, say, a council supporting it and stuff like that. In fact, that's actually condemned. That's actually what's called conciliarism, and that was condemned in 1870 as well. But like a lot of France held to Gallicanism, which was a form of conciliarism until then. It was a pretty idea, but which, if you actually follow the debates, especially those with Denny Sullivan, aka Ubi Patris, who's brilliant, he's correct. Like, it basically means like the Pope can actually act as a dictator and autocrat. Because it's possible, he could meet the criteria of papal infallibility, like back in 1950 for the Assumption, and define something absolutely absurd. And he doesn't actually. Now, some theologians would argue like the Pope would be in moral error for not conferring with his fellow bishops and so forth. But if you read Vatican I, it's not necessary for him to do it. He could act rogue, if you will. And to claim like he needs to, or like he that kind of smacks of not collegiality or synodality, but like conciliarism in some respects, and that's a condemned proposition since at least 1870.
What you had was local authorities, but no central universal authority that acted as the ultimate adjudicator. In other words, you no longer had the church, you had the churches in an institutional sense. And in those churches, local authorities, the bishops, had no one higher than themselves to adjudicate final decisions. All of us have to ask, what model better fits the historical data? Joe's model that says that the bishop in Rome held universal jurisdiction and was the ultimate infallible adjudicator for all believers? Or the model that essentially all historians see, which is that while the local bishop of Rome was, and he was, a very prominent
By the way, all those historians, including faithful Roman Catholic ones,
bishop, he was not the ultimate infallible adjudicator for all believers. Now, I claim a model that is essentially what all historians see, including honest Catholics, which is that while the local bishop in Rome was a very prominent bishop, he never claimed universal jurisdiction in the early church because he and everyone else knew that he had only local authority. Now, for example, why does no one until long after Constantine actually come out and just say that the Roman bishop is the ultimate authority anywhere except for Rome? Why did the
this might sound like a weird argument, but that's actually good because, like, if you look at early Christianity, they have sermons, they have treatises on the sacraments such as baptism, bishops, celibacy, Mary, but nothing that looks like Vatican I in prototypical form. The closest thing would be, like, say, the canons of Serdica that allows the Bishop of Rome to, like, act as the appeal court, but even then, they don't make the final decision. They just, like, okay whether an appeal could be made to somewhere else.
Yeah, I think, and so this is where that argument comes in, I think, and I don't know if Joe will use it or how it gets brought up at all, if at all, but, well, they were writing to, because you were mentioning how they would write to each other and send things around. They were writing to the Bishop of Rome, and he was sending things out to the other churches and wherever else. But there's some of that happening during the time where John the Apostle is still alive and sequestered. And so I've heard that people just go, well, yeah, because like the Bishop of Rome takes authority, but you had a living apostle. And just because they're right, that doesn't mean that they didn't adhere to what John would teach and say. It just means they were writing to each other. That's not giving authority to Rome.
Yeah, and there's no I think evidence one way or another, like say the Church of Corinth actually wrote to Rome asking for them to interfere, like give their decision.
Right, yeah, take ownership.
This ecclesiastical history he actually outlines, and this has been noted by like Laurent Clearenrec, a very ecumenical Eastern Orthodox. That there's other instances where like other sees would interfere as well. It's not example of papal primacy, and also again there was a plurality of elders or bishops in Rome. Even someone who was an Anglican but ecumenically minded, like not an anti-Catholic, like J.N.D. Kelly in his book on the papacy, states that, under the interview for Anacletus. And other historians as well, like Schatz and others who are Roman Catholic, agree to that too. So, yeah. Again, this is like an example, of good Jacob, but it just needs a bit more nuancing.
Roman Bishop Victor I fail when he tried to excommunicate people outside of his jurisdiction? Is that what happens when someone is...
I'm sure the response would be, and that was a sinful action by the people. It's like, okay, but where's the example that they actually were knowingly rebelling against this, or the belief from other sees? It's like, my dudes, you're engaged in mortal sin.
Seen by all as the ultimate authority? Also, surely in the early church, when the church needed to call its great ecumenical councils of local bishops to decide the binding doctrine for all believers, the ultimate authority, the Bishop of Rome, surely he would be the one calling the council, right? Wrong. Not only did the Bishop of Rome not call or preside over essentially any of the first major councils,
Oh, by the way, a Bishop of Rome was actually excommunicated during a ecumenical council, Vigilius. And in another ecumenical council, one was posthumously excommunicated for teaching heresy in a private letter to Sergius. Now, if you claim that's wrong, you're calling into question the indefectibility of the church. So you're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
the emperor did. Keep that in mind. In the case of Constantinople too, the Bishop of Rome was entirely against the council. Is that what you would expect if Christians understood him to be the ultimate authority in the church? Also, during the great doctrinal disputes and heresies of the 2nd century, the Bishop of Rome should be the one that everyone looks to for final judgment. But they don't do that. In the age of heresy of the 2nd century, the Roman bishop is treated just as another prominent bishop.
And that comes out in what's called the Cotardesmian controversy. The controversy as to when to celebrate Easter, where people actually knowingly went against Victor, the Pope of the time, and you kind of see this like Eusebius' ecclesiastical history. It's like they were not functioning as if Vatican I was there in seed form, let alone in developed form. And here's the thing, if you read Vatican I and Salus Cognitum, it was there in its substantial form. It wasn't like, say, a little seed that became a tree. It has always been there in its substance. So, even if you claim the Contradesmian controversy is not about faith or morals, it's like uninspired apostolic tradition, where like different apostles had their own personal take on like when to celebrate Easter, and that led to the controversy. The very fact they did not think the Bishop of Rome was the final say-so on this issue, and it actually led to like a split on the East and West. It was pretty significant. Should tell you a lot. They did not actually operate under this mindset. And we're talking about faithful people at the time. We're not talking about like say the Gnostics or Docetists here.
With nothing more than local authority. So why did the Bishop of Rome eventually start claiming they had universal jurisdiction and infallibility? Well, think about it. Is it really a coincidence that the Roman bishop in the capital of the empire just happened to become the ultimate authority in that empire? You see, the nature of empires is to centralize control and power. So it's not a coincidence when Christianity was adopted by the Roman Empire that the Roman bishops began over time expanding their claims of jurisdiction, authority, and political power. Eventually, the Roman Church began to claim that they were the ultimate spiritual and secular authority on earth. And this power grab was rightly rejected by the Eastern churches and their bishops, and it split the church in two in what is known as the Great Schism. Also, let's do a quick thought experiment. I want you to imagine for a moment that I was writing about the history of Catholicism during the last 300 years. Can you imagine how weird it would be if nowhere in my history did I mention a pope or a pope-like office? Well, guess what, guys? Around the year 320, Eusebius.
I think the argument would be, well, that's because they just assumed it was the case. No one had to point it out. It was obvious. Just like the sky is blue, you know. Of course they accepted the Pope.
Was the first great historian who undertook the task of writing the history of the Christian church before it was adopted by the Roman Empire. Now, surely he would mention something about the supreme, infallible leader of the church during its
The constitutive aspect of your ecclesiology and the very backbone of your claims.
first 300 years, right? Wrong. Nowhere in Eusebius' history does he mention a pope or anyone with a pope-like role. Instead, the history clearly shows.
And when he does, it's in the context of the Contradesmian controversy and other issues that kind of are very embarrassing to Roman Catholic claims. Uh-oh.
What I already mentioned, and what every scholar essentially believes, that what existed after the apostles were local authorities governing local churches, trying their best to hold things together. But surely things went well, right? Surely there was no corruption in the centuries after the apostles, right? We don't need ongoing prophetic guidance for the people of God, right? Well, Hegesippus was a historian writing a mere 50 years after the death of the apostles, and here is what he described happened. Quote, "The church continued until then as a pure and uncorrupt virgin. But when the sacred choir of apostles became extinct, then the combinations of error arose by the delusions of false teachers, and there were none of the apostles left. These also henceforth attempted without shame to preach their false doctrine against the gospel of truth." But how could this happen? Well, just read the Bible. The Gospels were the good news. The letters were largely the bad news. They were the apostles constantly writing to push back against error in the church in its earliest days. Paul says, "I'm astonished that you're so quickly turning to a different gospel." Jude says that certain people have crept in.
Okay, I do think it's great and based that Alahardi saying would use Galatians 1, positively, so,
Into the church. Unnoticed, ungodly people who pervert the grace of our God. You see, the apostles were the bulwark against creeping apostasy. But as the earliest historian pointed out, once the sacred choir of apostles were gone, error began to creep in. So why should I believe Joe Heschmeyer over Paul and the very first historians writing just after the actual events? I mean, go study the history of the papacy, guys. Study the history of indulgences, the murders, the orgies, the greed, the incest, the torture, the sacrilege, and all of the other atrocities committed by...
Okay, this is where I don't think I would go and agree with Jacob, because as horrible as those things are, there is the belief in Catholic theology. There's been morally bad popes, so the indefectibility is not going to be, or infallibility will be affected negatively by their moral lapses. So indulgences, yeah, that's a later accretion. There's no question about that. But trying to bring up stuff like this, it's not how I would go, and like you're setting yourself up for, like, to be refuted rather easily.
The popes and the papacy. Now, Joe will admit that the popes did commit all sorts of atrocities, horrible atrocities, but then he'll say with a straight face that it's impossible that these same heretics could have ever corrupted the doctrine.
Oh, by the way, there's actually a debate to this day where like a pope can actually be a personal heretic. Bellarmine actually has 6 opinions, and Suarez has discussed this as well. So, because you will actually find some people who claim like, no, a pope can never be a heretic, like super ultramontanists, and then you will actually have like a lot of people who are now blackpilled, I think is the term, because of Pope Francis. It's like, yeah, can be a godless heretic, but only personally. He won't hopefully bind the church to his errors. So, because like Honorius taught Mother Teletism, I think that's rather obvious in the personal letter of Sergius. and he was condemned as a heretic, and like that was debated in Vatican I before the scientific definition. And there's
Do you know,
other disease as well.
Do you know who Taylor Marshall is?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think he might be in that camp though. The black pilled camp that you're
Oh
talking
no,
about.
definitely.
Yeah,
I'm kind of surprised he's not a sedevacantist yet, but no,
right.
I think he still attends the SSPX, and that's
Yes.
functionally sedevacantist.
Oh, is it?
Functionally, they do
Functionally,
believe in the
okay.
Pope, but like it's a sedevacantist making machine. Like if you look at all the leading priests and bishops who are sedevacantists these days, like late Bishop Dolan and Father Shikata, as well as like Dole Sanborn and many others, they were actually ordained in the SSPX by Lefebvre himself. Because
Oh,
functionally, they basically reject, like, say, the annulments by the Novus Ordo Church. They have a very low view of the New Order Mass, some even thinking, like, say,
mhm.
it's intrinsically evil.
Right.
And even one of their bishops, the one who passed away like a year ago, Tisier de Malaris, actually did not believe that the episcopal consecrations introduced in the late 60s were efficacious, so they're actually producing false bishops.
Oh, oh, well, okay, good enough.
Oh, and they also reject the canonizations of like JP II and others, and canonization is probably a secondary object of infallibility. So, you know, they're, as one would say, they're trying to have their pope and eat him too, you know. It says here, Robert is about one fourth as loud as all the other audio for me. So, okay, that's... If others can let me know if the audio is fine, because it should be fine. This is
Keep in mind that Joe will claim that the Catholic Church is the church of the first century. But are we really going to pretend that the first century taught the bodily assumption of Mary, or praying to saints, or icon veneration, or papal infallibility, or indulgences, or that the Roman bishop had universal jurisdiction? Why is it that these uniquely Catholic doctrines are not found in the early church? Look, it's one thing if you claim a doctrine has been revealed to you.
Oh, and Joe's kind of been bitching about that on Cameron's show, so... But we all know, because they're defined, they're de fide dogmas, you claim they're apostolic, so of course they're important, Joe.
Like it was to Peter. But Catholics don't believe that the Pope receives new public revelation. He just passes on what has been given to him. There is no record of these Catholic dogmas anywhere in the historical record until centuries after the apostolic era. And if you're going to assert that...
Yep, that's true. And Joe deceptively claims, well, they paralleled Eve and Mary, so that's all you need. Although these very same people like Irenaeus in the same breath would impute personal sin to Mary, but who cares about that?
The apostles taught the infallibility of the Bishop of Rome, icon veneration, and Marian dogmas, then please provide some evidence.
They said nice things about Mary, and they said nice things about the Bishop of Rome. What else do you want? And Jesus called the icon of the Father. I'm sure that will be the response.
Saying it's tradition without specific evidence from that tradition going back to the apostles, that's just another way of saying, trust me, bro. But it's worse. Because in Catholic dogma, if you willfully and knowingly reject things like the bodily assumption of Mary, you will have committed a mortal sin, meaning a sin that sends you to hell if you don't repent of it. So instead of providing evidence to back these dogmas, the Catholic Church threatens you with hell if you dare to question the Pope's infallible pronouncements.
That is actually true. If you knowingly reject anything that's not even like extraordinary things, like but things that have like been taught consistently in the ordinary universal magisterium, like baptism of desire and baptism of blood, that is a mortal sin, and you will go to hell unless you repent of it. Oh, and just to correct David, he writes, I think the Pope claims revelation, but only to clarify existing public revelation. No, Rome does not claim there's any public revelation going on. So the Pope, infallibility is like a negative protection. You know, the Pope is protected from like producing error, but it's not like, say, extraordinary, like, say, how Paul was inspired to write Thessalonians, for instance. The positive fate is closed, no more, only clarification, which is scope. Yeah, it's scope. It's basically modern revelation, but you just don't want to claim it's modern revelation. And Elias D, he said, trust me, bro, law. No, it's actually trust the Bishop of Rome, lol.
Are we really going to stand here and pretend that this is not a corruption of the gospel of Jesus Christ? If Christ was going to send people to hell for not believing Mary was sinless or for rejecting the Pope's infallible decrees, you might think he or his apostles might have mentioned that somewhere.
They did, and the church protected it, but just don't ask us to support that from any of the documents. Look, they say nice things about Mary. Again, that's basically how you have to respond.
But you see, Joe believes these dogmas because he presupposes the validity of the papacy. Not because of the historical record,
It also pays very nicely for him.
but in spite of it. Just watch. The basis of Joe's arguments tonight will very likely be to simply presuppose that when the Bible talks about the church, it is talking about the institution started by the popes. Also, every time Joe mentions Mormonism today, I want you to whisper to the person next to you, he's dodging. Remember,
Don't worry, people. I will not be saying for 20 minutes straight he's dodging. Just like, I'm going to say this here. Joe Heschmeyer will dodge.
if he proved tonight that every claim ever made by any LDS person was false, it wouldn't change anything in this debate. Ultimately, this debate is about if there was an apostasy, and the truth of Mormonism is not relevant to that question. It's a question of historical necessity. So if I win tonight's debate, I do not prove that Mormonism is true, but it gives solid grounds to believe there was an institutional apostasy. As a Catholic, Joe claims there was no institutional apostasy because the papal institution is the original church. It is the bride of Christ, and without the papacy, the bride of Christ is dead. But does history support papal claims to infallibility, universal jurisdiction, or the perfect preservation of apostolic doctrine? It doesn't. So Joe will simply presuppose the church mentioned in the Bible must be the papal institution known as the Catholic Church, and he will avoid the history that refutes those claims. With that, I yield my time.
Wow, a minute early. Great job, Jacob. All right, let's move to...
Okay, before I do this, if anyone knows the email of Ubi Petrus, I would love if Denny Sullen were to do a review of this debate. So, you know, and if you... My word, I can't stand Joe Heschmeyer.
Joe, and just to let you guys know, as Joe goes up here, this is not his rebuttal. Okay, this is his opening statement, so don't be prepared for him to respond.
Yeah, I think this is good because, like, can't believe I'm actually going to say something in Joe's favor, spits. But often, like, in debates, people complain, like, well, you didn't deal with my opening statement in your opening statement. It's like an opening statement is where you present your case for or against. You do not interact with the other person's opening statement. You know, you're meant to present your case. So, because, like, it's like a sheep debating tactic, but it's like, my dude, that's not how debate works. So.
Respond to everything that Jacob just said. Joe, when you begin, I'll start the timer.
You can be forgiven for being confused about what debate you came to and thought you came to debate about the papacy. But in fact, this was...
No, according to Roman Catholicism, the papacy is the backbone structure of ecclesiology. It's a de fide dogma. It's basically the spine of your church. So if there was no papacy, as dogmatically defined in Pastor Turnus in 1870, your church is false. So we should expect to see this structure throughout the ages, and the Bishop of Rome, with very little, if any, impediment, except for, like, you know, notorious heretics, being able to, like, engage in immediate universal jurisdiction in the East and West. So this is the, how dare you expect me to defend my theology? Which is despicable, but it's par for the course for Joe. If it's not obvious, I have very low opinion of him, not just as an apologist, but also as a person.
debate about the great apostasy. And as you know, there are huge swaths of the Christian world who reject the Mormon doctrine of the great apostasy.
Okay, so Joe, will you claim that the papacy is false? You know, this is the same as his lame response to Cameron on Capturing Christianity. He's like, well, you know, even if the assumption and icon veneration were false, that would still leave the Eastern Orthodox and Coptics. It's like, just tell me their doctrine in those faiths as well, you idiot.
Without believing in papal claims. So that's your first time that we're going to have to redirect and actually get a little bit back on topic. So what is the great apostasy? Well, the Greek word apostasia means falling away, or literally standing apart. And both Catholics and Mormons and Protestants and Orthodox, we agree that there is such a thing as personal apostasy.
Hebrews 6, Hebrews 10, Cope and Seed Calvinists.
We've got some Protestants who believe in one state always, we're going to leave them out of this debate. But it's this idea that you can lose your faith, you can fall away from the true church. That's not what we're debating tonight, we agree on. What we're debating tonight is whether...
I would have loved if they panned over to Aaron. Like, triggered.
The church itself, founded by Jesus Christ, the visible institutional church that he and I both agree is founded by Christ in the New Testament.
Which you claim has taught since Pentecost, when the unique prerogatives were bestowed upon Peter, a la what Vatican I teaches, has been there since day one. You fraud. Stop dodging.
whether that fell into a universal apostasy, that the whole church is gone, institutionally gone. And this belief is integral to the claims of Mormonism in particular. Jacob is going to call this a
And the papacy is integral to your faith. So if there was no great apostasy, from your perspective, there would be the structure. Unless, of course, you are going to claim history refutes Vatican I and Satis Cognitum and the Catechism and other sources that are authoritative in varying degrees in your system.
but it absolutely is not. One of the biggest reasons people believe in a great apostasy, if you're coming from an LDS background, because Joseph Smith teaches it, not because history.
By the way, Flynn, Mr. Flynn, we all know who you are, kind of captures my attitude towards this. Joe speaks, me, Solon's papist.
Reveals it. Preaching my gospel, the LDS Church's Handbook for Missionaries puts it like this. A universal apostasy occurred following the death of Jesus Christ and his apostles. If there had been no apostasy, there would have been no need of a restoration. We agree on that.
Okay, so as a Roman Catholic, can you actually show me icon veneration and the other dogmas that are primary objects infallibility and supposedly apostolic in origin? No, in fact, you actually will have the opposite throughout church history. You've dogmatized idolatry.
If the great apostasy didn't happen, Mormonism is false. On the flip side, if the great apostasy did happen, Catholicism is false. So neither of us are going to prove our respective religious traditions tonight, but we are going to try to disprove one another. I hope that makes sense. So if the Catholic side wins, Mormonism is false, and the Mormon side...
Not necessarily, because he basically has to shoot himself in the foot if he's not going to defend the papacy here. If he's going to concede, yeah, they didn't actually operate under the papacy, you're either providing a history that you don't yourself agree with and think to be fundamentally flawed, or you're no longer believing Roman Catholic and maybe Chris Scheck will actually fire you. Say what you will about him, but James White did say correctly, inconsistency is a sign of a failed argument, and you're being very inconsistent there, Joe, but who cares as long as it pays the bills and it's all done for Holy Mother Church.
Catholicism is false. It's not actually my job as a negative in this to prove that the Roman Church is a one-church church and people infallibility. None of that's It's to debate on whether or not the great apostasy happens, and that's what I'm going to debate. Jacob, I invite you to debate that as well.
No, he was. And he's debating not an agnostic, he's debating a supposedly faithful Roman Catholic.
So, let's get into the particular...
Oh, and also you can actually believe in the great apostasy and not be a Latter-day Saint. You could be a Christadelphian, which I know a lot about.
Iterations of the great apostasy, right? There are a couple of versions of it. So Joseph Smith in 1832 wrote his autobiography. In it, he said that between the ages of 12 and 15, he realized from searching the scriptures that the various churches on earth had all apostatized from the true and living faith.
Base Joseph Smith.
And there was no society or denomination that was built upon the gospel of Jesus Christ as recorded in the New Testament. That's it, right? That's what he means. And notice, this happens between 12 to 15, and it's not for any special...
Sorry?
I called he was going to go there, and I think that's why Jacob, toward that opening, did what he did with the believers versus the institution. So, yeah.
Revelation, he might could derive this conclusion from searching the scriptures. Then at age 16, he says, he's praying again, the Lord opened the heavens upon him, and he saw the Lord. A few years...
Well, again, the I-16 was actually a Lighthill Scriber edition, and he said in his 15th year, so Joe doesn't know the difference between ordinals and cardinal numbers, but, it's okay.
Later, he gives a dramatically different version of things. It's hard to actually square with his original one. In the version that's part of Mormon canon in the Pearl of Great...
And someone here commented, just finished listening, neither pen the others on their standard of proof. Yeah, I'm kind of guessing that's the case.
Christ is no longer from searching the scriptures that he comes to believe in the great apostasy. Quite the contrary. Now he's 16, and now he has to see the Lord. He sees two personages.
Okay, first of all, when it comes to AD, how many persons appeared in the 1832 account? There's a mention of the Lord, and actually two lords, and some, myself included, Stephen Harper thinks I'm right. That's Psalm 110, verse 1, where there's two numerically distinct lords. Also, Jesus in the 1832 account speaks as if he's a distinct person from the Father, so that refutes the idea like modalism or developed of LDS Christology. Also, Joseph did not say he only saw Jesus. That's called a non sequitur, but if you want to be like that, be consistent in thinking the Gospels contradict one another, or not simply present different aspects vis-a-vis the angels at the tomb and other well-known examples as well, which are more precarious. We don't claim those accounts are Theop Neustos. You claim the Gospels are Theop Neustos. And although, you're going to be embarrassed by this, you do believe in the inerrancy of the Autographia. Look at Prophetissimus Deus by Leo XIII from 1893, and Divinia Flante Spiritu from the 1940s by Pius XII. So, and also, these are not mutually exclusive. he doesn't even know what a contradiction is. Like Joseph could be convinced through he's reading the Bible, but he's not 100% convinced in his heart that there's an apostasy until like other things convince him of that case as well. You know, they're not mutually exclusive. They're not necessarily contradictory.
Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ. And then he asked him, I quote, which of all the sects were right? For at this time it had never entered into my heart that all were wrong.
Yeah, you know, he could be convinced through his reading the Bible that there was none, but he wasn't like 100% convinced in his heart. He was still hoping. And, you know, our theology is like basically hyper-Arminianism. He did have a fondness for the Methodists. You know, again, they're not necessarily contradictions. He's just trying to engage in sheep shots because, and also I really doubt he's actually read the sources. He's just basically getting this probably from like either Patrick Madrid, Jimmy Aiken, or Isaiah Bennett's book from like the late 90s.
So here at 16, he doesn't believe in the great apostasy.
He wasn't 16, you idiot. The 16 is actually a later scribal insertion. Everyone who's actually studied that knows it. And he said in his 15th year. You do know the difference between an ordinal and a kernel number, right there, Joe? Right? Okay, I've been told that the mic is low. It's probably because I'm sharing the audio, so that's probably why. I mean, Michael can hear me just fine, so it's probably just like the sharing on YouTube because I'm sharing the audio, so...
And tell Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ, tell him, join none of them. For they were all wrong. And the person who addressed me said that all their creeds were an abomination in his sight. That those professors were all corrupt. That's what we're debating. Not, do you think the Pope had universal jurisdiction?
But according to you, a faithful Roman Catholic, that has always been the belief. Again, inconsistency. If you want to argue like an atheist, have at it. But then imbibe and accept the atheistic or non-believing or modernistic accounts of history that claims that the Assumption of Mary is basically a joke in terms of its historical pedigree. And the same thing when it comes to icon veneration and the papacy, which is the very backbone of your ecclesiology. And it's not something like, say, like the seed, you know, the acorn seed into the acorn tree, you know, mud development and because of Maquis. According to Vatican I and Salus Cognitum and other documents, that the substance of it has always been there. And someone said, I just came from watching Hayden Curl's new interview with Trent Horn. Have not watched that. This has quickly cleansed me of any respect for Catholicism I gained there. As long as you make the difference between most Catholics, not Joe, but most Catholics and Catholicism.
The question is, are all of the creeds of pre-Mormon Christianity abominations?
Joe, what do you think of the Westminster Confession of Faith? In fact, let me get my copy of Shasta Creeds of Christendom and we can actually see which ones he accept, like the Confession of Dositius, you know, and the Council of Jerusalem, you know, and other Eastern Orthodox ones, you know, or maybe like say all the Reformed ones. It's like, okay, that's not, you know, yeah, granted, most of them are, but you know, just accept Trent.
And the church set up by Jesus Christ wiped off the face of the earth. So whichever version of the Joseph Smith story you choose to accept, or whichever...
They're not mutually exclusive. You know, if you think they are mutually exclusive, at least deal with, say, Stephen Harper or some other people, including myself, who've actually addressed this.
You're inclined towards, the conclusion would be the same. Christian churches are all false, and professing Christians are all corrupt, and even says the hearts of all the Christians are far from...
Joe, what does the Roman Catholic Church, you know, especially the Council of Trent and other things, you know, teach about, say, the Protestant faiths? You know, are they under anathema, at least the Protestants of those times? Is the Eastern Orthodox Church actually a false church, or are they only true insofar as they get the borrowed capital of, like, say, valid sacraments, you know, and the canon of Scripture and other things from the borrowed capital of Holy Mother Church? You know,
When did oh, sorry.
Yeah, because Vatican II, you know, it's kind of itchy, but like if you look at the Latin and the background to it, it does say like the true Church of Christ subsists in the Roman Catholic Church, and all the rest kind of ambiguous in English. If you actually know anything about the people who actually formulated that, it's basically a very traditional understanding of Catholic ecclesiology and true claims, even if it's been abused by modernists post Vatican II.
Yeah, my question was like, when did they decide that the right formula constituted a correct baptism?
It's something that developed because you do have Pope Stephen, I believe, who actually taught incorrectly, I will note, that baptism in the name singular of Jesus was efficacious. So it's kind of a developing. Now, I kind of know, like, say, for Anglican orders, not the same thing I know. That was in 1896, where it was rendered null and void. That's why, like, if you actually pay attention to, like, any of my interactions with Jennifer Roche, I always say Leo XIII is my favorite pope. But yeah, these are developments, but yeah. It's...
Okay. Perhaps then, I would suggest that it's not surprising that this belief system is one of the reasons many Christians don't regard Mormonism as part of Christianity. As new
Okay, and so if that's the reason why, give over,
ideas Harold Givens says, Mormons insist on the need for a gospel
quote mine from Terrell Givens. I doubt he's actually read anything by Terrell Givens, though.
restoration. But then feel the sting of being excluded from the fold of Christendom. They have just dismissed it irredeemably apostate. Like if you regard all the Christians on earth as apostates, don't be shocked if they don't say, come join our club. So whatever.
Okay, there's a difference between being labeled Christian in a generic sense and being recognized as someone who actually is a partisan of Christ. That's what Christianos means. And, joining the ecumenical club. We do not want to do the latter. At least we should not want to do the latter. There's a difference. And this kind of shows how two-faced a lot of Roman Catholics are. When Rome was actually in charge, of a lot of countries, when there was no real church-state separation, what happened to people? What happened to people who had different theologies?
Okay, wait, I actually had,
What happened to Jan Hus fellow?
Yeah. Well, but that's funny. But also I was reading this thing. It was about this woman that became the Queen of France twice because she was betrothed first to the Emperor of Austria, and this was according to the Pope's will, and that would have, because she was the Duchess of Brittany, which is now part of France but wasn't then. Anyway, then the King of France concocted this plan and it worked, and he got her to marry him instead. And then the next king, they didn't have kids. The next king becomes engaged to her, marries her, and he dies. And then she's finally just given power in France. But it was just funny because the reason the King of France, both of them wanted to marry her for the claim to Brittany, was to prevent the papacy from coming in and taking over Brittany under the Pope's protection or something. All these politics. And I know you said they're not it's okay that they, in Catholic dogma or doctrine, I should say, not dogma, that, the popes can be heretical and do all these things outside of that. But I do think there's a point to be made about why are other Catholics, even ones who are ordained and anointed kings and such, playing power politics against the Pope? If there really is this thing where the Pope, the Holy See is supreme above all others, then shouldn't they just fall in subjugative line underneath that and not try to do these machinations? I am confused about some of that. I think maybe that's why Jacob's bringing it up. It is confusing to some of us.
Yeah.
So
I think there is a way to validly argue that, but I usually just focus on what's being defined. So that's going to go on with this crap show.
The general apostasy certainly means that after death, the apostles' priesthood authority, including the keys to direct and receive revelation to the church, is taken from the earth.
Well, as a Roman Catholic, you also believe public revelation was removed from the earth as well. Only private revelation since the close of the canon. So you would actually have to nuance your disagreement there a little bit.
Now here, the story again seems a bit confusing. Some LDS official publications will claim that men corrupted the principles of the gospel and made unauthorized changes in church organization and priesthood ordinances, and that
Yeah, like infant baptism.
because of this widespread apostasy, that the Lord withdrew the authority of the priesthood from the earth.
Yeah, Oh, by the way, again, Roman Catholics believe there are certain sacraments to produce an indelible mark on the soul, so it's sacrilege to ever repeat them. Baptism, I think confirmation's another, and holy orders. So that would be an important point of disagreement as well. He would claim that's not possible anyway. That God could remove an indelible mark upon the soul. So I doubt, say, the nuances though of sacramental theology and ecclesiology did come up, but that would be a fun discussion to see is that early or not? Because I think the Eastern Orthodox have a more nuanced view than the Roman Catholics on that, at least. But again, it's Mormonism is false, and your understanding of the Great Apostasy is false.
So in that version, you have corruption that leads to apostasy that leads to Jesus withdrawing the authority. That's version 1. Version 2, also from official LDS materials.
Again, I think he's trying to say people say X and people say Y, so X and Y must be different or contradictory. Again, this is like internet atheist style of argumentation. You know, it might work well, you know, and especially when it comes to say a BS artist, and that's what he is. You know, Jay. But no, like you can actually hold two different things together. They're not inherently or intrinsically contradictory.
Is that priesthood authority was taken from the earth. Because the church was no longer led by priesthood authority, error crept into church teachings. So the second version of the LDS freedom of apostasy claim is that no, the doctrinal corruption doesn't lead to the removal of the authority. The removal of the authority is what leads to the doctrinal corruption.
Okay, no lost does.
I don't know which version of this Jacob is going to defend tonight because he largely didn't talk about it at all. But either way,
Because Mormonism can be false and their understanding of the great apostasy can be false, that does not mean that there's been no great apostasy. I mean, one religious group I actually know a lot about that very few other people know would be Christadelphianism, and they would hold their own great apostasy narrative, so they could be right. And how they approach things are radically different because of their radically different beliefs about Christology and Satan.
the story's been murky.
Oh, and Restored Trudy's online. Yo, dude.
But that's what I want to interrogate him. Are those claims true? Because Mormon missionaries were sent into the field to really stress this story we know to be false. As a point, as a diamond displayed on black velvet appears more brilliant, so the restoration stands in striking contrast to the dark background of the great apostles.
Thank goodness we don't have infant baptism, the sacrifice of the Mass, the latria being given to bread and wine, the ahistorical matrix and the Marian dogmas, the nonsense of the Vatican I understanding the papacy. You know, yeah, based.
So that's the story. It's intentionally a black and white story. That's from Creek Point House. So I want to
Oh, and LDS Scooby, yo, dude, notice how Joe, is about to quote Ephesians 2:20 and will not quote verse 19 that would illustrate a loss of apostles and prophets as Jacob provided. So,
interrogate those claims. Those are strong claims, and hopefully we understand what's on it. Let's explore, beginning with first what the Bible has to say. Remember the kind of that individuals are going to go into apostasy. It's not even that a lot of people are going to go into apostasy. It's not that there are never going to be heresy. Mormons and Catholics would both admit that we have faced heresies and false beliefs within our own folks. That's not the standard. The standard, what he's trying to prove here, is that there was a universal apostasy, and that it happened quickly following the death of the apostles. Talmage quoted him on the church's website in Doctrines of...
Yeah, again, has he actually read Talmage, like in terms of the books, or it's just like snippets?
Quote mine.
Yeah, yeah.
The gospel claims that it happened almost immediately, perhaps before the year 100. Now, let me think about it. Imagine for a minute this is right.
Oh, and Talmage wrote 100 years ago. There's been a lot of scholarship on patristics by LDS and non-LDS since then. So this is lazy. Now, I respect Talmage. He was great. But again, he was around 100 years ago. There was a lot of anachronism at the time as well. He was relying a lot on Protestant histories as well. And Protestant histories have to accept, to some degree, the Roman narrative of history as well to justify their rebellion against said Roman narrative.
Imagine that Jesus Christ in the first century sets up a visible church with the authority that we both agree that the church had. And then imagine that in just a few decades, maybe a few years, that authority is going to be completely destroyed.
Argument from incredulity.
Would we expect to find that?
And there's institutions that were set up in the Old Testament that failed. Does that mean God failed or man failed?
Prophesied in, I don't know, the New Testament? I would suggest yes. That seems like a fairly big event. Prophets like Isaiah foretold in pretty explicit terms how the Assyrians would conquer Samaria and send the people into exile. Prophets like Jeremiah foretold that Nebuchadnezzar would capture Judea and destroy the temple, and that there would be a Babylonian captivity for 70 years.
Or how Joseph Smith prophesied of the Civil War in 287. So, you know.
The guy, the empire, the number of years of captivity is all explicitly laid out. When there's a major cataclysmic event, these things are foretold in Scripture. Jesus foretells the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, saying that not one stone will be left upon another.
I hope this means Joe actually predates the Gospels to at least the Synoptics before 17. If so, we at least have something in common. Hashtag Merc was written in the 40s.
That happens in the year 70. The idea that just a few short years after the writing of the last book of the New Testament, the Christian church is going to be removed from the earth and will become apostate, and that doesn't bear even a mention, is quite a remarkable omission.
Well, one can argue, and I'm not sure, like, I still have to think about this, like how the woman in Revelation 12 is obviously not Mary as the church, and she goes into the wilderness, so is there something to that? And that is like a very important text. If he actually read Givens, he would know that's a very important text for the apostasy and great restoration Givens and other LDS appeal to. But of course, he hasn't, he just read snippets. So
Well, yeah, but then it's also, and that day shall not come, except there should be a great falling away first, and these other things. And he's talking about the Old Testament. The Old Testament talks about it too.
Yeah.
I mean, he's actually quoting some of the very prophets that
Oh, and
talk
and
about the
and
great
someone knows,
apostles.
like, he's making an argument from silence. It's like it's basically incredulity. It's like, well, they should have done this. Well,
We should have done it my way.
earliest Christians should have provided evidence of icon veneration, not contradict its substance, like Irenaeus and others did. They should have like provided like treatises on the Assumption of Mary, because trust me,
Right.
bro, they should have.
Right?
Would
they
you
should have
accept
done
that from
it.
anyone else?
Yeah.
And also, again, if he's going to be pulling the gates of hell prevailing, I wonder if he's actually read Gibbons and others on that, at least interact with that kind of interpretation, even if he thinks it's far-fetched.
Probably.
And also, LDS Scooby says, this isn't the standard by which Jacob is arguing from. He's exclusive arguing from history and not scripture. Yeah, which is where you should go. Because it's like, again, let's just say in argumentio that's the case. Then explain the historical silences for your dogmas. Again, Vatican I, understanding the papacy, which has always been there. Res Salus Cognitum by Leo XIII, for instance, as well as Vatican I documents, and other de fide dogmas like the Immaculate Conception and other things like that, not there. So either there was no great apostasy, but the early church was not a Roman Catholic church, ergo, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, or get out of this kind of biblical quote mining and actually deal with the historical arguments. And Joe cannot. And I've read his works. He cannot.
But this is underscored by the fact that according to Scripture, the church is the temple of the living God, 1 Timothy 3:15. And
Yep, we agree. And if he's going to say like it's the pillar and bulwark of faith, yeah, but it's talking about the local church, and we can all agree local churches have apostatized.
it's a temple built both by and upon Jesus Christ, Ephesians 2:20. So why doesn't Jesus or anyone else give us clear, unambiguous prophecies about his church being destroyed by apostasy in the very near future? I think that's a question anyone in here who's LDS should grapple with. You've been told one version of events.
Yeah, this is the argument for incredulity. Okay, so how come there's no mention of prayers to the saints directly, except for angelic mediators in Revelation 6, and even then they don't receive prayers, they forward the prayers to God. Or like, why is there no, like, say, Triatus and say Marian dogmas, the apostolic preaching recorded in Acts, or a host of other things? Again, it's arguments from incredulity, and like, I would have done it otherwise. Here's the thing. In argumentio, there could be absolute silence in the New Testament documents about a forthcoming great apostasy. That is actually not a problem against us because we don't argue from silence. And there is like a way to argue from silence, but I really doubt he's actually read historical treatises and manuals on the proper way to argue from silence.
It is a remarkable omission that we find no clear prophecies of either the great apostasy.
It's a great omission that the Assumption of Mary is not mentioned explicitly. It's a great, there's so many things you could actually say, like there's so many things that are missing, like, for the life of Christ from ages 12 to 30, there's so many things. But again, he's arguing from a present. He's ignoring the fact, like, say, a lot of these texts in the New Testament are liturgical texts, or texts written for like a specific period or specific topic that's coming up, like, say, the controversy in Galatia, with the Judaizers and all that jazz. It's very rare, if anything, that you're going to get this whole. What he's looking for is like an ecclesiastical document, like what you would have, say, with the Groot and others in the New Testament. That kind of a level of explication. And also, as LDS Confidence in Christ says, no explicit prophecy, ergo the apostolic age was a unique, non-repeatable phenomenon.
Or the coming of Joseph Smith in the future. The Old Testament is full of prophecies of the Messiah to come. The New Testament is not full of stories of Joseph Smith to come.
Okay, and like the Old Testament has prophecies of a messianic figure, but no mention of this Peter guy or Mary or Paul or Andrew. So should we actually just jettison that as well? That's
We're not
a
even
stupid argument.
Yeah, not even to the best of my knowledge, John the Baptist, who Christ says was the greatest of all the prophets. So
the closest thing would be like how there's a forerunner to the Messiah, and John the Baptist, in some sense, was a forerunner, at least on the first Advent.
Yeah, fair.
But that's really it.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if this is how Joe argues, he being consistent, he cannot argue against a Tovia sinner or some other Jewish critic of Christianity.
Right.
He would have to like be inconsistent in how he argues here.
Those are remarkable omissions. Instead, most of the defenses will involve passages like Amos chapter 8. If you come from LDS background, chances are you've heard of this, where
I don't really think Amos 8 is a text about the future great apostasy, but it does show like what an apostasy looks like. Like, there's no public revelation, but it's an example of, like, say, not God failing, but the people failing, and God actually punishing the people as a result of their failure. So Because if he's going to, as he has pulled the whole, did Jesus fail with the great apostasy? He's like, no, but people did. And, although you do believe in predestination, a la paragraph 600 of the Catechism of the Catholic Church there, Joe, as well as the Council of Trent, you also still believe humans, in some sense, have a free will, and it's not determined a la Calvinism. So people fail all the time, and even popes have failed. Honorius.
Amos 8, verse 11 to 12. Talks about God sending a famine in the land of hearing the words of the Lord. But if you read Amos 8 in context, you should note a few things. First,
Joe, telling people to read the Bible in context. Rich.
it's not about the early church in the first century or the early centuries after Christ. It's explicitly, Amos 8, 3, about the northern kingdom, what would later be called Samaria.
And okay, let's just say that's in arguments here, that's true, and I probably would agree with him. Imagine him like arguing against Tobias Sinner, who would bring up, like, say, the historical context of, say, certain messianic texts like Isaiah 7, 8, and 9. There's no real way he could argue against, like, the Hezekiah interpretation. In fact, I doubt he can actually read Hebrew, so he'd be screwed anyway. So
It is then confusingly called Israel, while the southern tribes are called Judea. I didn't name them, but there you go. So when it says Israel, it means who it calls Samaria. And the famine of the word is because the people wander from sea to sea, that's east to west, if you think about the geography, and from north to east. So where are they not wandering?
yeah, because because metaphors, they're not grounded in reality. What the frick? Is he actually trying to? Yes, north and south, east and west, but that's often referred to like totality. I mean, like, one of the prayers for, like, say, the canon of the Mass, at least the New Order Mass, is like, from east to west you gather people to yourself, from age to age you gather people to yourself, so that from east to west the perfect offering is made to the glory of your name. An invocation of Malachi. Does that mean, like, so it's like, if it said, like, say, here in Ireland, they're just talking about, like, the sacrifice, from Dublin to Mayo? No, it's like, it's a marasmus for, like, everywhere, not simply, like, say, a specific locality. Again, I don't use Amos 8 as a proof text for the great apostasy. I do think, like, it's localized, in that kind of area. But simply to, like, harp on that and try to make a point about it is like, again, you're setting yourself up for failure when it comes to, say, the Malachi text that's a proof text for the Eucharistic sacrifice in the Mass and other issues as well. Again, inconsistency is a sign of a failed argument.
They're going north, east, and west. They're not going south to Judea, where the word of the Lord is. Amos the prophet from the southern kingdoms, rebuking the northern kingdom. That's all Amos 8 is about. They have cut themselves off from the word, not because of a universal apostasy, but because they refuse to go to the church temple in Jerusalem or hear from the southern prophets. This passage is taken wildly out of context to
Not as well as out of context as, say, Matthew 16 and Vatican I or Luke 128 in the Immaculate Conception, and those of other texts as well.
condemn the early Christians as apostate, and it's simply false. So, it's not just scripture is silent. It's not just that there is no clear case for it.
The historical witness against your de fide dogmas?
It's that we have numerous promises showing that the kingdom Christ comes to establish will never fall away.
Oh, yes. So before he kind of goes into the whole Daniel 2 thing, then explain the apostles wondering when Christ was established the kingdom after his ascension in Acts 1:6. They did not believe in the all-millennial assumptions Joe has. And as I told Jacob about this text, like, I'm guessing he's going to bring up Daniel 2 here now, we all agree with that. It's just like, when does it start? If you're all-millennial, you believe the millennium and the church age are one and the same, at least its experience on earth. So, of course, like, it was established around, say, the crucifixion, if you follow the Council of Ephesus or some other time like that. If you're premillennial, not even LDS, but just like traditionally premillennial, it's going to come at the second coming of Christ. That's when the kingdom will be established. Because if you read Luke 1, when Gabriel appears to Mary, he said, he borrows from, like, 2 Samuel 7 and other texts as well, where Christ will sit on the throne of his father David, and historic premillennialism, which LDS would hold you with some nuancing, believes that will happen in the earthly Jerusalem at a future time. So when it comes to Daniel 2, we agree, it's just like, when is the establishment of that kingdom? Is it with the church age, or is it at the premillennial age, if you will? And again, how does this actually support that the New Testament Church and early Christianity is substantially the same as the Roman Catholic Church, as defined in Vatican I and other documents?
We're in the season of Advent. As they approach Christmas, we should remember the words of the angel Gabriel to Mary, when he announced that Mary is to bear Jesus, and that the Lord God will give him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over the house of Jacob forever. And
I didn't even know he was going to go there first, so I actually sent myself time. Acts 1:6. How did the apostles and early Christians actually understand that, and why were so many early Christians premillennial? including Irenaeus.
Of his kingdom there will be no end.
And we agree with that.
Similarly, you've got the promises of
We just differ as to when that will be established.
Isaiah, the unto us the child is born prophecy. The government will be on his shoulder, and of the reign of this newborn God King, who is called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Isaiah tells us that the increase of his government will know no end, and that he will reign with justice and with righteousness from this time forth and forevermore.
Yeah, and messianic prophecy, let's just say that's a direct prophecy of Jesus. There's no way Joe can actually survive a debate with an informed messianic critic of Christianity like a totally a sinner, but who cares about being consistent here? But let's just say it's a direct prophecy of Christ and so forth, and those name titles are used of Christ. When is it established? And also, and everyone acknowledges this, there are certain messianic prophecies read through the lens of Christ, where some were fulfilled at his first advent, and some will be fulfilled at his second advent. Everyone agrees with this. And again, you have the apostles in Acts 1:6 wondering when Christ would establish the kingdom, and he doesn't dismiss that, as Calvin thought he did, but said it's not for them to know at that time. And again, you have early Christians, including those who believe that there would be no apostasy, that like Irenaeus and against heresies and other sources as well, who were premillennial. Like Justin Martyr was premill, and not everyone, but like about 60-70% were premill. There were some who were amill as well, like Origen. And of course, that would be like later doctrinal and elevated to such at Ephesus in 431.
Those promises, I would suggest, are not consistent with his government having an abrupt end a few decades or even centuries later. You can also look at Jesus' own description of the kingdom in places like Matthew chapter 13 with the kingdom of heaven parables. He describes the
Yeah, which the Latter-day Saints actually interpret in light of, say, the end times, and that comes from modern revelation. So we're aware of those prophecies, we just disagree as to when they would be applied, similarly to Daniel 2 and other texts as to when the establishment would take place. Again, this isn't even like an LDS Catholic debate, this is like a debate about different eschatologies here.
kingdom as a field containing both wheat and weeds, which will grow together until the close of the age. He compares it to a mustard seed, the smallest of seeds, which grows into the greenest of shrubs. He likens
Again, I think it's section 86 of the Doctrine and Covenants, either 85 or 86. So, yeah.
the growth of this kingdom to that of leavened bread rising. He doesn't say the weeds are about to destroy the field. The mustard seed is going to die up and not bear fruit. It's going to be replanted 1,700 years later. He doesn't say the bread is going to try and rise and it won't.
Which we don't believe. But, I know you haven't read the Doctrine and Covenants, and I know you haven't actually read LDS commentaries and the parables. So it's all good.
None of that. The promises, the prophecies, the parables of Jesus all point in one direction against the great apostasy. And then, of course, you have passages like Matthew chapter 16, where he famously
My gates of hell.
Yeah.
I wonder. No, here's the thing. Do you think he will interact with LDS responses? Because I think we've done a very good job at responding, like at least the shallow my gates of hell will not prevail against the church apologetic. So do you think
I gotta say this. I was with the missionaries at a discussion pretty recently with a Protestant sister, and she brought that up, Matthew 16, the gates of hell and all that. And I gave her the answer that we've all kind of understood how to use. And then you go into 2 Peter and you talk about that from 3 and 4, and it tied it all in. And she just stared at me like bewildered. She's, by the way, on the path toward baptism now, because she's like, I've never heard it explained like that. And the Spirit just fell on her. I just wanted to share that, like in association to this, we have a way to answer it. And the way we answer it does bring truth and light from revelation from the Spirit to those who are open enough to listen to it. Unfortunately, what Joe's going to do is try to close that door off for anybody from ever being open to it.
Okay, I'm going to quote Timothy Flanders, who's a conservative Catholic convert from Eastern Orthodoxy. This is on the episode of Reason and Theology that Michael Lofton took down, but I actually, this is from like 2019, where he says, first and foremost, the gates of hell did prevail in a literal sense against the body of Christ. Our Lord Jesus Christ was dead and buried. He was literally dead. His soul separated from his body. The gates of hell prevailed. He went to hell, as in Sheol, not hell, if you will, and so on. The very beginning we see, and when we consider the disciples, they were totally despairing, but we had the resurrection. And that's the beginning at the 5936 mark of an episode, The Aftermath of Vatican II, which is no longer on Reason and Theology. And let me quote from D. Charles Pyle.
Oh, I like Pyle.
Yeah, his book, I Have Said Ye Are Gods, which everyone should read, pages 390 to 391. Jesus promised that his church would not be prevailed by the gates of Hades. Many have interpreted this verse to mean that the church on earth would not die. But this is not what Jesus meant. People have not understood. these also do not realize the function of the gates of Hades. Their function was to keep in Hades, or Hades, those who died, and keep them dead, thus prevailing against all who entered thereby. They were not defensive gates. Most never followed true to this real meaning of the promised. It is only through death that the promise might be fulfilled, for in death is how one faces the gates of hell. Death, the church was to die, but Jesus promised that she would not be prevailed against. She would live again. And then, of course, like, I'm not going to quote it here, but Terrell Givens, Feeding the Flock, Oxford 2017, pages 180 to 181, provides a standard Latter-day Saint interpretation, as had others like Barry Bickmore, John Tratnes, and others on this. So I wonder if he's going to actually interact critically with this, or any of the Catholic commentators who are a bit more nuanced about this,
Yeah, that first one you said was from 1319. Is that? Or what was the date?
The one from Timothy Flanders?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's from an episode of Reason and Theology, Michael Loftus.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's no longer online. The Aftermath
Okay.
of Vatican II, 5936 Mark. And for those who are wondering, it's my blog post from 2019, Reason and Theology's The Aftermath of Vatican II, and a note on Matthew 16:18. I'll actually share the link in the chat for those who want that. So,
Yeah.
Oh, and that idiot Priscilla's here. Did you actually pay attention to what we were saying there, Priscilla? No.
Tells Peter that on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against.
In the same way that Christ died, but Hades did not prevail against him. Emphasis on prevail. I wonder if he actually knows what the Greek nuance of that means.
And I would suggest that if the church goes away for 1700 years, that is against Hades prevail against, I suspect.
So if the early church did not actually have the papacy, icon of veneration, the Assumption of Mary, and actually contradicted it, the substance of those beliefs left, right, and center for several hundred years, what's that show?
We'll talk about that more later, so we'll put a pin in that for now. But there's more. When he sends his followers out of the Great Commission,
That's it. No exegesis. This is shallow. This is pathetic. I know you have 18 minutes, but friggin' hell, this is pathetic.
he says, I'm with you always to the close of the age. At the last
Yeah, close of the age. First of all, he's addressing the apostles. But let's just say he's addressing the church members of the time. It begs the question, when is the end of that aenos? Does it mean forever, or is it a certain period or epoch of time? And that's what, and both nuances are there. So
he promised to think the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of truth, to be with us forever, to dwell
again, talking to the apostles.
within us, and he promises that the Spirit of truth will teach us all things and will guide us into all things.
But you don't believe that's the case today because you don't believe public revelation is a reality. How did they do that for the apostles? Public revelation.
The truth. That is inconsistent with all of our creeds being
And that is inconsistent with your own ecclesiology and claims of authority. Again, in order to attack us, you must blow off your own feet.
abominations. The New Testament depicts the church not just as your disciples following after Jesus, and in fact not just as an institution, but in fact as people incorporated into Jesus spiritually, as the bride of Christ, as the very body of Christ. In Ephesians 1:23, Paul calls the church.
Yeah, and the same for Israel, but there was divorces. That's like Gomer and Hosea and all that jazz. Elias Scobie says he's going to force Jacob to exegete it, presupposing that the Catholic interpretation is correct. I hope Jacob called him up on the presuppositions and how he was full of crap.
The fullness of him fills all in all. In Ephesians 5, he talks about the church and Christ becoming one flesh, as a man and his wife become one flesh.
Yeah, and we agree with that.
There is no separation of head from body. There is no separation of bridegroom from bride. Without
Ever hear of a divorce? Or no, I know you pretend it's not a divorce, so let's just say an annulment. Which frankly, it's a divorce.
being completely contrary to the whole Christian story. You see this as well through the story of Acts and throughout the New Testament, that there is a clear sense of the growth of the church. St. Paul
When they were receiving public revelation, which you don't believe is the case here, so there's been some type of substantial change, but who cares about that?
says in Colossians that the word of the truth, the gospel, which has come to you as a gate in the whole world, it is bearing fruit and growing.
Okay, and that means there was no great apostasy. Are you familiar with the whole I'm not a fan of South Park, but I did watch this episode, the Underwear Gnome episode.
No.
Okay, well, it's kind of crazy. Like a bunch of gnomes are stealing someone's underwear. I think it's Treek, the guy with ADHD. So it's like, why are you stealing his underwear? It's like, underwear? Question mark, profit. And I often call this like underwear gnome eisegesis. It's like, church was growing. Question mark, no great apostasy.
That's awesome. That's good.
His story is that even though there are conflicts without and within, nevertheless, it's going in the right direction. The mustard seed is becoming the mustard tree.
And in the early church, when there were doctrinal controversies, who did they go to? The singular Bishop of Rome? Were they informed by Vatican I, Salus Cognitum? No. And before you proof text First Clement, there's no evidence that the Church of Corinth actually asked for them to intervene. And it was also very common for other sees to intervene in the business of other sees. Eusebius, in his ecclesiastical history, actually provides some examples of this as well. And it's been noted by actually reputable Catholic theologians, and even some of your apologists who are much more honest, like Eric Ybarra says, with respect to Ignatius and the Church of Rome presiding love, again, Church of Rome, not Bishop of Rome, and also First Clement, they're inconclusive vis-a-vis Vatican I. And that's from his book on the papacy from a few years ago.
And somehow, Palpatine returned. Now, some of you are not very enough to get that reference. But in Star Wars Episode 9, they undo the entire narrative arc of the first 8 episodes, which clearly shows the rise and fall of Palpatine and his death. And then they say, and somehow he returned. Well, similarly, the Mormon claim is, okay, Jesus promises...
Star Trek's better than Star Wars. Come fight me.
The Old Testament, he's going to have a remnant. He promises in the New Testament there's going to be a mustard seed that grows into a mustard tree. There's a clear arc, and somehow the church died. No explanation, no prefigurement.
Again, for the mustard tree chain, are you familiar with the LDS interpretation of that, Joe? No, I mean, I'm sorry. It meant you haven't read one of her books and not a quote line. I'm sorry.
Nothing that would point to this being the logical next chapter of the story.
Sarah Base Kolob, did Joe say Apostle had to walk with Jesus from the beginning? How would that work for Paul? Yeah, I mean, they're trying to take, like, say, the qualifications from Acts 1 and absolutize them as if that's the case for all apostles, which is why, like, even Paul acknowledged, like, he was an apostle. And the Greek in Galatians is, like, it's very graphic. It's like an abortion or a stillbirth vis-a-vis he's been an apostle. So even he acknowledged that. Listen to your local bishop. See, apostolic succession. What about unfaithful bishops like Irenaeus and others did warn, like, no true bishop would have jurisdiction, or preach error, which would mean they stop being a bishop or they're booted out. And if we should listen to bishops, once Nestorius was teaching Nestorianism, was it listed to actually still pay attention to him? What about, like, when bishops of Rome, even as individual theologians, were talking some crazy stuff? Should we listen to them as well?
We can talk about that more. But I want to give one additional passage that I think is an incredibly powerful one.
Keep in mind, people, he thinks this is an incredibly powerful one. One, I wonder if it's incredibly obscure, and two, I wonder if he actually exegetes the text, because this would need knowledge of Greek or Hebrew. Daniel
chapter 2. And Daniel 2, King Nebuchadnezzar has his dream of a statue. It has a head of gold, breast and arms of iron, belly and thighs of bronze, legs of iron, feet of iron. This is understood by Daniel as prefiguring 4 successive kingdoms, beginning with Nebuchadnezzar's own Babylon.
Okay, first of all, it assumes, like, say, a date of Daniel and authorship of Daniel and those other issues, which I don't think he acknowledges. And, like, say, trying to, like, date these different kingdoms, there's been different theories all throughout the ages, not just by premillennialists, ye, us, but all millennialists as well. So, Joe, how do you actually ascertain, like, moral confidence that your exegesis, which I'm guessing will last 30 seconds, is actually correct? Because I'm sure, like, if I were to ask Robertson Janus, or others as well, what do you think of Joe's commentary here vis-a-vis Daniel 2? Even if they do think, like, the final kingdoms of the Roman Catholic Church, I'm sure they would say, like, Joe's out to lunch on certain aspects as well.
You can then trace this of the 4 successive kingdoms that rule over Israel. That actually is the Medo-Persian Empire.
And by the way, I should note, like, LDS actually think this is about the LDS Church, and there's been actually some good work by LDS on the dating of this as well to fit the 19th century and the Church. I don't think it's convincing. I think you need to start with certain a priori assumptions either way, but
the third is the Greek Empire, and the fourth is the Roman Empire, which is, of course, reigning over Israel at the time of Christ. It's during this time that Daniel says, in the days of those kings, he means the fourth king, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, nor shall its sovereignty be left to another people. If the establishment of the church during the time of the Roman Empire.
Again, he needs, like, Daniel to be fulfilled at the time of the Roman Empire and not some other later empire. And if you read, like, say, various works from conservative to liberal, like, say, Gaston to, like, Collins, who's a Catholic, by the way, on this, it's not as clear cut. And even if you think, like, say, Daniel, at least Daniel 2, he's set in the historical Daniel time, again, it's not clear cut as to, like, the different kingdoms and other issues as well. Again, there's, like, a very popular premillennial interpretation of this that's not unique to LDS that actually holds up, I think, much better than the all-mill interpretation.
Is explicitly foretold because the stone not formed by human hands will come and establish. It's the clear prefigurement, prophecy of the establishment of the church by Christ from heaven, and this kingdom existing on earth. Okay, there's much more that we could get to, but I want to close with 4 very quick thoughts. First, the LDS Church claims
Tots.
that it will never fall into apostasy. But if you think about the narrative claims, it
Yeah, because we actually have explicit revelation on that point. So
cites to Doctrine and Covenants 138, verse 44, which in itself just referenced in Daniel 2, and it's cited to Daniel 2. Now, Daniel 2 points to something happening during the reign of the Roman Empire, not 19th century in there. So those are better
yeah, no LDS interpreter has ever noticed that show. We have no answers to that because we're stupid.
proofs that there won't be a great apostasy during the time of the first
Well, and again, Mormonism being false does not mean great apostasy did not happen.
century church, rather than the so-called Reformation.
I mean, like, if I were to debate the apostasy, I'm just saying, like, in arguments that Mormonism is false, show me Roman Catholicism. More or less like what Jacob did, but I think better.
Second, I want to propose a simple test. And if you listen to Jacob make arguments for the great apostasy, just ask, would that argument disprove Mormonism as well? To see if it's a good argument. We'll get into that later. And then actually I'll save my other 2 because I've not allocated my time very well.
All right, thank you, Joe.
Man,
Well, hopefully the audio is better now. See, now I'm no longer sharing the audio, but well, that was crap. I mean,
Yeah.
I think Jacobs had some flaws with it, but you know he was okay, I suppose. But that was crap. I'm sorry.
yeah, we're not getting the best.
I could put on my Roman Catholic hat and do a much better job than Joe, but then again, unlike Joe, I've read a lot of pre-Vatican II documents, and also I've read LDS sources. So
Right. And you're right. Like there's this. He's trying to prove Mormonism is false, but that doesn't mean no great apostasy.
yeah,
It just doesn't. The church could still be in apostasy even if Mormonism didn't exist.
Yeah.
Like,
That's-
come on.
that's it. And that's why Jacob rightfully focused on history. I mean, you can quote you can biblical proof text until the cows come home. And funny enough, like say, if this was a debate with say James White, Joe would be the very first to go to patristics and medievals. You know,
Mm. Yeah, interesting.
yeah, because it's a historical claim, not simply a scriptural or theological claim.
Right. Yeah. Well, so did you see that that bit I posted up to you from John Miley? I threw it on Facebook, but I don't know if you saw it yet. It's kind of relevant or relative. Because I mentioned it last time we talked, and you didn't know the source it was from. Where did I put that? So I don't know if you've read.
The Hopkins book.
Yeah, the Hopkins book.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've read that one. It's early in the book.
I read it years ago.
Years ago, yeah. So yeah, this guy John Miley, he says, because he's like, when do we? The point was discussing when do Protestants stop accepting the tradition of the Catholic Church to set forth their doctrine and allow them to split, right? And he puts it at like around the year 200, which is pretty early in my opinion, because that predates the creeds. But his argument is, well, that's when not just obviously where the apostles gone, but that first generation after the apostles that would have learned directly from them were gone. And we know there's a clean break, and we got these new ideas that we're starting to see. That's where we think tradition stops. And so, like, I don't know if that would work against someone like a Joe Heschmeyer or whatever in a debate to bring up, well, here's some of these people studying it, and they're seeing like radical changes and shift happening in theology and whatever right around the year 200, and they take that as some type of an apostasy. Like, I don't know what someone would say, because you've got apostolic fathers, or not apostolic, but you got the early church fathers, going through claiming apostolic teaching or doctrine or authority of a kind, right? Obviously continuing until you set the church under Constantine, but it's fascinating. Like, that's some muddy history, man. I don't know if you were Joe or someone like that, if you'd want to go there.
Yeah, but of course there's the response, McKees.
Yeah, McKees. Yeah, true. Yeah, the key stayed.
Yep.
So, but again, that's presuppositional. I don't like that. I really have trouble with that.
Yeah, Romanists being presuppositional. What would I want to say?
Yeah. I don't like it. But
Well, we kind of did what we did. Praised Joseph Smith a little bit and went through the opening statements of those debates to prepare me for the debate review, which hopefully I'll have Jacob Ryder on. You can pop on if you want. I know one of the crumbs will be on, hopefully. So,
Good.
yeah, and also like Elias in conference. But Polycarp literally knew the Apostle John, ergo apostolic succession. And here's the thing: I know you've been flippant there. It's like many of the Judaizers knew some of the apostles and early Christians as well. Ergo, Galatian heresy is acceptable.
right. That's a good point. And or Gnostics, right? When did Gnosticism start? Around 160? Got identified.
Well, first of all, like how people define Gnosticism, it's just such an umbrella category. It's like Protestant. So, you do have like say some aspects of it like in pre-Christian Egypt and developments as well. So it's one of those things where like people use the term, but they never really define it, and it's kind of a fuzzy term. Because some people who are Gnostics were probably not Gnostics at all. It is like part of the polemics against them as well.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, Litwa in his recent book on Marcion actually does a very good discussion about Marcion and how he was not necessarily a Marcionite as we understand it.
Okay. Huh. Yeah, I'll have to look into it more.
Cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, thanks, Michael, for coming on. Really do appreciate it. And thanks for everyone. Let's see. Restore Truth. Joe has a double standard via scripture appeal. No scriptures support an idea of a great apostasy, but yet none of his dogma is found in the Bible. Double standard per usual. Yeah, but of course, like my keys and my papacy. Ergo, you're wrong. I mean,
yeah, it's just you should know.
Peter's a rock. What more do you want?
Yeah, he gave it to Linus. He handed off that rock.
I'm guessing Patrick's joking, but he says Gnostic equals secret like Joseph's vision. Robert, come on now, it's obvious. I hope that's a joke.
I think it's a joke. But...
Yeah, good. That's good. Well, thanks for everyone for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. And in terms of announcements, on January 11th, I will have Jacob Billings on to discuss the linguistic complexity of the Book of Mormon. Maybe sometime in January as well, we'll actually have the proper debate review. So I'll be joined by a few people. And there's a couple of other episodes in the work. Like Craig Foster will be coming on to discuss his book on anti-Mormon pamphleteering in Great Britain in the 19th century, and also he wants to come on and discuss an aspect of plural marriage as well. So, yeah, he says it's a joke, so that's good. I wasn't too sure, but kind of figured it was. Poe's law, and all that jazz. But yeah, thanks, Michael, for coming on. Really do appreciate it, and hopefully we can actually hook up again for like another live stream in the near future. So
absolutely.
But for you and everyone else tuning in, happy Christmas as well.
Yes, happy Christmas. Yeah.